Naruto. Forging God System. Starting with a sword as a gift to everyone. Chapter 21. Naraku and Nawaki, seeing the battle end, also came to Tsunade and Jiraiya's side. Nawaki, a sister complex, quickly asked about his sister Tsunade's condition, and Tsunade said she was fine. Jiraiya, however, said to Naraku, "Are you sure you want to use this monster to forge armor?" Naraku informed Jiraiya, "Toad Sage, haven't you also seen Tyrann's terror? The armor forged using Tyrann will be a living armor. It will possess Tyrann's terrifying defense, attack power, strong adaptability, and terrifying evolutionary ability. Furthermore, Tyrann's previous invisibility ability can also be gained." As Naraku explained, Hiruzen Sarutobi and Danzo Shimura slowly walked towards the two. Even though Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Tyrann's full power battle was outside the village, the commotion was so great that some people in the village already knew. Hiruzen Sarutobi, after arriving, made everyone else disperse, but he couldn't get rid of that shameless Danzo Shimura. Hiruzen Sarutobi asked Jiraiya, "What exactly happened just now? Where did that monster come from?" Jiraiya looked at Naraku, who wasn't too flustered and was about to explain about using the monster for forging. Hiruzen Sarutobi and Danzo Shimura were stunned. "You grew 50 centimeters in 2 months." Hiruzen Sarutobi, in particular, was somewhat upset because his height in his prime was only 165 centimeters, and it might even decrease when he gets older. Naraku had already prepared a bit of rhetoric and lied, "I suspect I've awakened a new blood limit. I feel it's less like a blood limit and more like signing a one-sided contract with a mysterious summoning world. The main manifestation now is being able to summon strange creatures. However, this summoning is random. Sometimes I summon living creatures, sometimes dead ones. Sometimes I can summon the next one quickly, while other times I have to wait a long time. I ate a fish that looked delicious after summoning it, so I grew a bit faster." Everyone present, except Nawaki, was quite knowledgeable in the ninja world, and it was the first time they had heard of such a blood limit, and one awakened by a Uchiha member at that. Perhaps it was like when Jiraiya mindlessly used summoning jutsu and ended up in a strange space, except Naraku couldn't go to that world, only throw out some things from it. In short, they were all suspicious, but Naraku's current value was not enough for them to kill the goose that lays the golden egg. More importantly, they were worried they might kill the goose and not get the egg. It's like something all programmer friends know. If the code runs normally, don't mess with it, even if it's a pile of shit, absolutely don't mess with it. Moreover, Naraku also had some background. Only Nawaki said, "Wow, this ability is too strong. Master Naraku, if you summon that kind of fish again in the future, please be sure to sell me some. I feel like I'm growing a bit slow." Regardless of whether everyone believed him, Naraku continued to explain his idea of using the monster for forging. When Hiruzen Sarutobi and Danzo Shimura learned the specific situation, they couldn't help but fall silent, especially after Naraku revealed his vision for the new armor. Danzo's heart felt like 1,000 cats scratching, frantically saying in his mind, "I want it. I want it." That greedy expression was even showing a bit. Hiruzen Sarutobi, however, had much greater self-control and said to Naraku, "Little Naraku, you are the future of the village. You must pay attention to your safety. If you have such dangerous things in the future, you can come to me." Danzo Shimura also temporarily suppressed his greed and said to Naraku, "If you need anything, it's also fine to come to Root." Naraku couldn't help but admire Danzo's thick skin. Earlier, this old dog called people to arrest him. Now he still wants his good stuff. "Just wait, I'll definitely come to you if I have good stuff in the future." Naraku also expressed his gratitude to the two. Later, for safety reasons, Naraku did not go to the Uchiha clan for forging but returned to Cat Granny's place after a long absence. After Naraku communicated with Cat Granny first took the cats to a safe distance as a precaution. Naraku, standing outside the forging room, glanced at Nawaki and was immediately attracted by the necklace around Nawaki's neck. Isn't this the first Hokage's necklace, rumored to bring death to whoever wears it? In the original story, the first Hokage, as the owner of this necklace, died young. Later, Tsunade gave it to Nawaki, and Nawaki was blown up by an explosive tag the next day. After that, Tsunade gave it to Kato Dan, whose internal organs were shattered. Tsunade, who had become a medical ninja by then, desperately tried to heal him but was powerless to save him. Tsunade also developed hemophobia because of this. Then, Tsunade, who regained confidence with Naruto Uzumaki, chose to give it to Naruto. When Naruto wanted to fully transform into the Nine Tails, he was suppressed by the first Hokage's power contained within it, so he chose to crush the necklace. He eventually succeeded in becoming Hokage. Naraku felt this necklace was not very auspicious. "Give it to me." Naraku, taking the necklace from Nawaki's neck, said to the others, "Let's embed this necklace on the surface of the armor during forging. You can take it off later if you want." Only then did Nawaki relax. This was a powerful encouragement for his Hokage dream. Naraku also appraised it with the system. First Hokage's necklace A rank, originally a relic of first Hokage Senju Hashirama, it is a chakra crystal that only reacts to the first Hokage's chakra and can suppress the power of a Jinchuriki. Naraku planned to inject this item into the armor as an insurance or catalyst. He thought that if the armor evolved to a certain extent later, and the armor's owner underwent dragonization to a certain extent, he would see if this first Hokage's power could be completely absorbed by a Senju clan member with Senju bloodline through this evolution, or completely suppressed, to prevent the armor's owner from completely becoming a non-human entity. After that, Naraku began to recall the forging techniques of Imperial arms from his memory and started to process Tyrant. Later, Naraku began to melt the orichalcum and used the melted orichalcum as ink to engrave strange runes on the dangerous species, Tyrant. This process was quite difficult. Tsunade had to punch Tyrant in the head every once in a while. Finally, after Tyrant's entire body was covered with strange runes, Naraku asked Jiraiya to use wind release power to cut off Tyrant's claws. To make it easier for Jiraiya to cut, Naraku also gave him a Naraku brand toy knife. Jiraiya took a lot of effort to cut Tyrant's claws. Then, as Naraku slowly chanted the incantation, the entire Tyrant began to struggle violently, and its body slowly shrank. Eventually, Tyrant's body became about the size of a human. At this point, Naraku took out 9 portions of orichalcum, 100 kg of refined iron, scarlet sand iron, scarlet ore * 10 portions, and Tyrant's claws. Naraku directly melted all the materials except Tyrant's claws together, then formed a rough embryo. Naraku needed to classify these rough embryos according to their shape, size, material, and other characteristics, and then, according to the requirements of the design blueprint, forge them into components suitable for various parts of the armor. These components included helmets, breastplates, pauldrons, vambraces, gauntlets, greaves, etc., each with a unique shape and function. It could be said that this step would take Naraku a lot of time, but Naraku had to complete the forging before the runes suppression on Tyrant ended. Fortunately, the rune suppression was still very stable, and for the next few days, Tsunade accompanied Naraku while he forged. Ever since she learned that Naraku was now an 8-year-old child, Tsunade had felt a sense of shame about getting too close to him. After all, it would be extremely perverse for any 22-year-old to have even a slight affection for an 8-year-old of the opposite gender. However, during these days accompanying Naraku, Tsunade discovered that Naraku not only possessed powerful blacksmithing skills, but his personal knowledge was also completely unlike that of a ninja academy student. He would occasionally say thought-provoking things, and the most important thing was that Tsunade found Naraku quite confident in card games, even mentioning many board games she had never seen before. Tsunade fully embodied the phrase, bad at it but addicted, and would occasionally say that she would eventually compete with Naraku in the art of gambling. In reality, Naraku also liked the current Tsunade. In the original story, a large part of Tsunade's alcoholism and gambling addiction was due to her self-abandonment after the consecutive deaths of her younger brother and boyfriend, coupled with her hemophobia. The only bad habit Tsunade had now was her fondness for gambling, but that was merely her personal hobby. Moreover, Tsunade would go home if she lost, unlike later when she would accumulate a massive debt. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, as time passed, a helmet, breastplate, pauldrons, bracers, gauntlets, and greaves were forged by Naraku one by one. Each time a component was forged, Naraku directly fitted it onto the human-sized Tyrant. 1 week later, with the last greave attached, Tyrant no longer looked like a monster. Now, Tyrant resembled a valiant general clad in armor. Naraku then melted the last required orichalcum, and then redrew various runes on the surface of the armor. When the last point was drawn, all the runes gradually merged into the armor. At this moment, the armor seemed to suddenly come alive, but the red flash in the armor's pupils appeared extremely ferocious. Afterward, Naraku chanted another strange incantation, and the entire armor shrunk again, gradually transforming into the shape of a sword. Naraku then placed the first Hokage's necklace into the reserved indentation, and the great sword was finally complete. The great sword shimmered with a cold light, its blade incredibly sharp, as if it could easily tear through the air. The sword body was wide and heavy, with strong lines, showcasing its power and resilience. Below the hilt was an eye-shaped crystal, and the crystal of the first Hokage's necklace was embedded at the top of the hilt. Ding! Congratulations, blacksmith, for forging an A-rank weapon. Reward: 1,000 draws. Naraku then appraised the sword in his hand. Oni Possession, Special Edition. This sword is infused with the blacksmith's dedication and uses a large amount of precious materials: orichalcum, refined iron, scarlet sand iron, scarlet ore, golden dangerous species Tyrant, golden first Hokage's necklace. It was forged over 1 week using qualified Imperial armament secret techniques. Due to Tyrant absorbing a large amount of natural chakra and the use of golden materials containing the power of a strong individual, its starting point already surpassed the original weapon. And it also added many new possibilities to this armor. This double-edged sword is 1.3 meters long, possesses sturdiness and sharpness characteristics, and can smoothly conduct chakra. There is a chain at the end of the sword body. Upon summoning, the sturdy armor will automatically fly out, enhancing the wearer's abilities. An Imperial armament boasting ironclad defense, equipped with the auxiliary weapon, red-backed shrike, a double-edged spear. Skills: 1. Evolution. Since the armor was forged from the dangerous species Tyrant and its vitality was perfectly preserved, the armor and weapon possess terrifying evolutionary capabilities. 2. Invisibility. The concealment ability utilizes the biological characteristics of the activated material, allowing for short-term transparency. If the user is skilled, they can also conceal their presence. 3. Choice. Under the protection of the first Hokage Senju Hashirama's power, choose to stop evolving or integrate this power to continue evolving. Naraku looked at the Imperial armament, Oni Possession, in his hand and subconsciously wanted to burst into laughter, but seeing Tsunade nearby, he decided to laugh later. Seeing that Naoki wasn't around, Naraku decided to let Tsunade try it first. Sister Tsunade, why don't you try this Imperial armament first? You can also test the side effects of this weapon, Naraku said to Tsunade. As for why he called her sister, it could only be said that these past few days weren't for naught. Tsunade thought it made sense. After all, she had witnessed Tyrant's power before, and Naraku had previously said that if an ordinary person wore this armor, they would die instantly. The bodies of their Senju clan were naturally incomparable to ordinary people, but she still needed to try it. A reminder: although ninjas are high attack, low defense, that is relative. A ninja's physical body is also terrifying. For example, Naruto's Rasengan Shuriken would grind a large hole in the ground, but after hitting Kakuzu's physical body showed almost no significant deformation on the surface. Also, in Neji's death, the forest behind him was completely penetrated, yet the brother-in-law barely had any large cuts on the surface. There are many such examples, so a ninja's physical body is also very strong. After all, Naoki was currently only a genin, and it wouldn't be good if he got injured. Tsunade went outside, picked up the Imperial armament with her right hand, and shouted with spirit, Oni Possession. As soon as Tsunade's voice fell, a giant wearing armor appeared behind her, followed by cloth straps wrapping around Tsunade's body. Then, armor appeared on Tsunade, and she also held the auxiliary weapon, red-backed shrike, in her hand. Naraku watched Tsunade's summoning scene and knew that Tsunade and the armor were not particularly well matched, because if they were, Tyrant inside the armor would also appear in the summoning scene. Tsunade herself was very satisfied with the armor, because for her, it could enhance her in every way. Tsunade tried to casually punch a nearby tree with her monstrous strength. The tree was directly sent flying an unknown distance. Tsunade found that the attack just now not only consumed less chakra, but its power was also greater than her usual punch. Next, Tsunade experimented with the armor's invisibility ability. In a breath, Tsunade, wearing the armor, disappeared. Tsunade looked at the completely unguarded Naraku, then quietly walked behind him and secretly poked Naraku's back with her finger. Naraku could only pretend to be startled. In fact, his third passive ability, Weapon Sovereignty, allowed him to easily perceive the weapon's location. Tsunade looked at Naraku's easily startled reaction, then slowly reappeared and said to Naraku, "Shoot at me. Use fire release. Great fireball technique." Seeing Tsunade say this, Naraku formed hand signs and used the great fireball technique. A fireball slammed into Tsunade, and Tsunade felt the attack. She then realized that the attack had only made her feel a little warm, causing no damage at all. Ding. Tsunade has initially mastered the A-rank weapon, Oni Possession. Talent replication activated. Host gains Earth Release Chakra. Naraku suddenly felt a rush of exhilaration throughout his body, knowing he now had an additional elemental affinity. While it wasn't the one he desired most, it was still an extra affinity. Tsunade, who had been hit by the Great Fireball, somewhat boastfully asked Naraku to use a high-power fire release jutsu. Naraku naturally didn't hold back, quickly forming hand signs to use the fire release, Great Fire Annihilation, which he had only recently learned. Although Naraku's chakra seemed to be only 2 units, not a lot, it was still double that of a Konoha Jonin. Naraku powerfully roasted Tsunade for 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. It wasn't until after 10 seconds that Tsunade felt a slight burning sensation on her chest, as the center of Naraku's flames was precisely that area, and Tsunade's chest was quite prominent. Tsunade was quite satisfied with this, as with her speed, she wouldn't even need 1 second to escape the flame's range. It could be said that this armor, combined with Tsunade's monster strength fist, had a very high degree of compatibility. After trying it out for a while, Tsunade dispelled the armor summon. Tsunade felt that the armor's energy and stamina consumption were completely acceptable for the Senju clan. Afterward, Naraku and Tsunade went together to the Senju clan compound, where Naoki finally saw his beloved armor. After Tsunade and Naraku's explanation, Oni Possession. With Naoki's roar as he gripped the sword hilt, a phantom armor with crossed arms appeared behind him. However, unlike Tsunade, the armor's head began to gradually split open, revealing Tyran's ferocious maw, and the entire armor slowly embraced Naoki. Seeing this, Tsunade secretly thought, is this the summoning image Naraku said was more compatible with this armor? Looking at the armor's ferocious maw, Tsunade couldn't help but feel a little worried. Naraku, on the other hand, thoroughly verified his conjecture. Sure enough, only hot-blooded idiots were most suitable for this armor. To put it euphemistically, it was a pure heart, and Naoki possessed the Senju clan's bloodline, so he would surely be able to grow rapidly with this armor. He was very curious if Naoki could unleash the armor's final skill, choice, and also curious what Naoki's choice would be. Of course, at the very least, Naraku didn't have to worry about Naoki being blown up by explosive tags before he could get the Senju clan's bloodline. The next step was the usual ability testing, after Naoki had tried each one. Ding! Naoki has initially mastered the A-rank weapon, Oni Possession. Talent replication activated. Host gains Water Release Chakra. It's not Lightning Release again. Naraku was extremely speechless about this. He could only comfort himself that there would be another chance, and with Naoki's compatibility with this armor, he should be able to obtain it. Naoki, do you have Lightning Release Chakra? Naraku asked Naoki, who was experimenting nearby. Yes, why? Naoki honestly replied. Naraku thought he still had 1,000 draws and would definitely get something good. As Naraku handed Oni Possession to Naoki, Hiruzen Sarutobi and Danzo Shimura also became fully aware of the situation. Hiruzen Sarutobi sat in his office, troubled by the arrangements for Uchiha Naraku. Although Naraku never proclaimed himself an Uchiha, and when introducing himself to others, he basically just said his name was Naraku. But as Naraku's importance grew, he found it increasingly difficult to manage him. Furthermore, as Naraku's contributions to the village increased, his network of connections also grew vast, and it was foreseeable that his network would become even larger in the future. Danzo Shimura glanced at Hiruzen Sarutobi and knew that his old friend was inwardly suspicious of Naraku. He said to Hiruzen Sarutobi, "This Naraku is becoming more and more formidable. The biological raw material used for the weapon he forged this time can even approach the strength of some tailed beasts. I wonder how strong the limit of the weapon forged this time is." Hiruzen Sarutobi's temper flared, and he said, "So what are you trying to say? Hand Naraku over to your root." You should know that's impossible now. Not to mention the Uchiha clan, even the strong individuals in the village, my disciples. Even the gradually disappearing Senju clan would not let you have Naraku. Just give up on that idea. Danzo Shimura, rarely seeing Hiruzen Sarutobi exasperated, said mockingly, then just let Naraku unite the village's forces through his forging. And finally, let them all rally around the Uchiha to take the Hokage position. Watching Hiruzen Sarutobi fall silent, Danzo felt an opportunity and began to press his advantage, also slinging mud. Naraku's forging method is truly miraculous, actually refining terrifying monsters completely into armor. If he refined the Nine Tails into some weapon, who in the entire Konoha could stop him? Naraku is also so close to the Senju clan. If he used the first Hokage's body to create a weapon, who in the entire Konoha could stop him? Then the Uchiha would have invincible power, and with Naraku uniting the village's clans and Jonin, the Hokage position would belong to the Uchiha. So I want to test Naraku's loyalty to Konoha. If Naraku weren't absent, he would definitely give Danzo Shimura a thumbs up. He truly lived up to his reputation as a notorious schemer in the ninja world, practically guessing everything the schemer Naraku wanted to do. One could only say he was very accurate in judging people. Just as Danzo was smugly confident that Hiruzen Sarutobi would agree to Naraku's terms, Hiruzen Sarutobi gave a different answer, but I refuse. At least not during this time when war is about to break out. This time, Danzo wasn't too angry, because he knew Hiruzen Sarutobi had already conceded, and he didn't want to kill Naraku so quickly. So Danzo, HMPH, ed and left. Naraku, upon returning to the Uchiha clan compound, ignored everyone and immediately collapsed into sleep. Uchiha Senjutsu and Uchiha Min sat opposite each other, drinking tea. Uchiha Senjutsu said, recently, Naraku has done many impressive things. First, he gifted a ninja sword to Orochimaru, then to Tsukumo Hitaki, and now he's made powerful armor but given it to the Senju clan. But what he's given to the clan are just ordinary ninja swords, and some people in the clan are starting to have opinions about him. Uchiha Min naturally knew what the clan head Senjutsu wanted, and said mercilessly, the weapons are Naraku's own forged creations. He decides who to give them to based on his own ideas. Is it your place to interfere? Uchiha Senjutsu didn't expect Uchiha Min to be so disrespectful. He had originally thought they could cooperate to pressure Naraku. So he also began to speak impolitely, remember, I am the head of the Uchiha clan. I will absolutely not allow any clan member to betray their own clan. Uchiha Min also slammed the table and said, even if you are the clan head, you have no right to dictate someone's personal assets. You will regret this. With that, the two parted unhappily. Naraku, refreshed after waking up, prepared for a major undertaking, drawing all 1,000 gacha pulls. After his usual routine, Naraku commanded the system to begin the draws. Ding, drawing now, green scarlet sand iron and scarlet ore * 200 portions. Green 20 meters Sea King corpses * 1,000. Sea Kings in the pirate world are extremely powerful creatures, belonging to the giant beasts. Gold manufacturing secret art. Demons manifestation demons extract. Demons manifestation demons extract. An ice imperial armament that allows free creation and control of ice. It is a liquid made from the blood of a super dangerous species living in the far north. Ordinary people who taste even a little will be driven mad by the desire to kill. Perfect mastery allows one to spontaneously comprehend various secret arts. Secret Technique 1. Mahapatra. Freezes time, allowing no one but oneself to move, but consumes a vast amount of energy. Secret Technique 2. Ice Storm Great General. First creates a large number of ice cavalry from ice, storing several days of energy, then releases it all at once, capable of generating a blizzard covering the entire empire. Platinum Super Dangerous Species. Ice Demon Beast. Ice Demon Beast. A legendary super dangerous species said to live in the far north, mastering the power of ice and possessing terrifying strength. Blue Orichalcum * 121 portions. Blue dangerous species corpses. Flying mantis, earth dragon, wood beast. Gold blade type imperial armament forging secret art. One cut killer Murasama, March of the Dead Yatsufusa. One cut killer Murasama. A cursed blade forged from the poison fang of a special dangerous species, the curse poison beast. If struck by this cursed blade, the victim will be infected with a cursed poison from the wound, leading to rapid death with no antidote. It is famous as a one-hit kill cursed blade. One cut is instant death, a mere scratch is fatal, and there is no cure. It is forged specifically for killing, but it also has a weakness. Extreme caution is required when holding it, as even a cut finger means instant death. In combat, if the opponent is not directly cut, the curse will not take effect, and it is ineffective against corpses. Its secret technique involves cutting oneself with the blade. If one cannot endure it, they will die on the spot. Successfully performing the secret technique grants a terrifying increase in the wielder's speed and agility. March of the Dead Yatsufusa, a cursed blade forged from the super dangerous species spider demon. It can control people killed by this blade through a curse, controlling up to 8 corpse puppets. The puppets look like they did in life and can be manipulated freely. When the ability is deactivated, they revert to ordinary corpses. Its weakness is that the more corpses controlled during Yatsufusa's activation, the more the host's own abilities are reduced. Gold Special Dangerous Species. Curse Poison Beast Alive. Curse Poison Beast. A terrifying dangerous species that wields incurable cursed poison and possesses extremely high speed. Platinum Guardian Deity Mecha Supreme Throne, Core. This is the energy source for the Guardian Deity Mecha Supreme Throne, a collection of precious energy stones from super dangerous species and the Empire. Gold Special Dangerous Species. Spider Demon. Special Spider Demon. A super dangerous species that turns killed enemies into puppets. Gold Dimensional Array Shangri-La Forging Secret Art. Dimensional Array Shangri-La. A space movement type Imperial armament that can instantly move a target to a marked location, but it consumes immense energy, preventing continuous activation. If energy consumption is low, it can be used continuously. Gold Space Stone. Space Stone. A strange stone containing spatial energy. Gold Special Dangerous Species, Ku. Ku. A special dangerous species capable of utilizing space stones. Gold 10,000 Year, Adamant Tree. 10,000 Year, Adamant Tree, possesses extreme hardness, making it incredibly difficult to destroy and equally difficult to process. Green 20 meters Sea King *50. Green Refined Iron *2000 kilograms. Gold Stone Mask Manufacturing Secret Art. The stone mask is a tool invented by Kars, a member of the ancient humanoid race, the Pillar Men, in pursuit of becoming a perfect being. When an ordinary human or other creature wears the stone mask and blood stains it, many bone spurs extend from the mask's edges, piercing into the wearer's head and brain. This then turns them into a vampire, whose physical abilities far surpass humans, who are immortal but are destroyed by sunlight. If the Asia Stone is embedded in the stone mask to greatly enhance its effect, it can evolve a Pillar Man into a truly immortal and invincible, ultimate life form, with the abilities of all creatures on Earth, along with supreme intelligence. Gold Pillar Men Blood Extract. Pillar Men Blood Extract, a necessary ingredient for making stone masks. Naraku looked at the results of this draw and was quite satisfied. He had indeed drawn many good items. The only platinum material, the core of the Guardian Deity Mecha Supreme Throne, left him a little speechless. Naraku once again recalled the forging conditions for this strongest mecha. The raw materials alone required 200 portions of orichalcum. There were also many other basic forging materials and conditions. The most terrifying part was that its biological material required a super dangerous species, a Western dragon. From Naraku's understanding, even among super dangerous species, their combat power varied wildly. In the Akame ga Kill anime he watched back then, there was a super dangerous species called the Northern Dragon, which he estimated with his naked eye to be about 15 kilometers long. Naraku felt that currently, no one except Uchiha Madara could defeat such a thing. This Western dragon never appeared in the original work, but it surely wouldn't be weak. Naraku also realized from this that there were differences between imperial armaments. Undoubtedly, the original imperial armament, Guardian Deity Mecha Supreme Throne, was not on the same level as other imperial armaments. Moreover, depending on the type of dangerous species used for an imperial armament or the specific part of the dangerous species material, some imperial armaments could reach A+ while others' limits were only A-. For example, the biological material used for Demon's manifestation was a super dangerous species, clearly stronger than the special dangerous species used for other imperial armaments. At least according to the description, it seemed much stronger. Another point was that except for the dangerous species, all other yields were corpses, while the special dangerous species and super dangerous species were alive. Perhaps forging had certain requirements for the freshness of biological materials. However, even if One Cut Killer Murasama, March of the Dead Yatsufusa, Dimensional Array Shangri-La, and Demon's Manifestation had some differences, they were still very powerful imperial armaments. Especially Dimensional Array Shangri-La, its function was very similar to the Flying Thunder God technique. Both allow spatial movement after marking a location. It might be a bit slower to place the mark, but its advantage is its long-distance movement, making it a life-saving artifact. Then there's the 10,000-year adamantine tree, which is a bit like a ghost. It's incredibly difficult to forge. What does Naraku want with this thing? To use it as a club to hit people. Finally, the stone mask is a very special item. After all, it can transform people into vampires, and vampires possess terrifying lifespans and incredible regenerative abilities. As for the increase in combat power, Naraku isn't sure how much it would enhance someone in the extraordinary world of the ninja world, but the weakness to the sun is truly fatal. If the Yang release of the Hokage world could simulate the effects of the sun, then it would be too dangerous. Naraku also suspects that becoming a vampire might affect a person's will, but he hasn't been transformed, so he isn't entirely clear. In short, Naraku thinks Orochimaru would really like this item. No, it should be that anyone who desires a long life and is willing to make certain sacrifices would love this treasure. Naraku exited the lottery interface and thought for a while, deciding to first forge One Cut Killer, Murasama, and then use its power to kill the special dangerous species, Ku. Mainly, he was a bit afraid that the special dangerous species, Ku, might be too good at escaping. Naraku rarely encountered an imperial arm he particularly wanted, and if it ran away, Naraku would have nowhere to cry. After that, he would forge March of the Dead, Yatsufusa and the Stone Mask. Naraku's idea was that if he faced a desperate situation, he would just stop being human. With the vampire transformation and the dimensional array, Shangri-La, Naraku's life-saving abilities should be greatly enhanced. Finally, he would forge Demon God Manifestation, Demon's Extract and Guardian Deity Mecha, Supreme Throne. Of course, the current Naraku simply doesn't have that many materials. So, the Guardian Deity Mecha, Supreme Throne can only be postponed. If he has the chance, he still really wants to forge this imperial arm. Naraku felt that if he could just forge this imperial arm, only that old immortal Uchiha Madara in the entire ninja world would be able to confront him head-on. If Madara died someday, then the ninja world's homelander, Uchiha Naraku, would come online. More importantly, no man can refuse a mecha. After making all sorts of decisions, Naraku went to the Hokage's office. Naraku felt that the special dangerous species Curse Poison Beast might require a human wave tactic and would also result in many deaths. So, Naraku planned to cooperate with the village. Arriving at the entrance of the Hokage office building, Naraku said to the ninja chewing on a blade of grass beside him, "My name is Naraku, and I wish to meet the Hokage-sama." Genma Shiranui, chewing on grass, glanced at the young Naraku. Even though Naraku had grown to 1.7 meters, people could still see a hint of his youth. Genma Shiranui didn't take him very seriously. After all, there were always people in Konoha who didn't know their place and wanted to see the Hokage. He couldn't inform the Hokage about every single one, could he? Genma Shiranui replied dismissively, "Do you have an appointment?" "No entry without an appointment." Naraku, seeing Genma Shiranui treat the future homelander of the ninja world in such a manner, immediately couldn't tolerate it. Konoha's strongest blacksmith, Uchiha Naraku. Hearing Naraku's confident introduction, Genma Shiranui became a little unsure. Then he suddenly remembered that Naraku seemed to have been mentioned by the Hokage. So, he immediately adopted a welcoming posture, as if greeting an owner returning home. To this, Naraku, who came from a tomato orphanage, could only say, "Back in the day, I delivered takeout and cursed at security guards during the day, and at night, I was a security guard stopping takeout. That's what you call loving your job. You, a mere Konoha gatekeeper, think you can stop me?" Naraku, upon entering the Hokage's office, felt a bit speechless. Danzo Shimura, the first pot shadow, was actually there too. He was sitting on the sofa, staring intently at Hiruzen Sarutobi. Naraku thought, "You two really have a good relationship, still having office flirtations during the day." Hiruzen Sarutobi, however, was very surprised by Naraku's arrival. After all, Naraku's life was either spent forging, picking up girls, or playing with his friends. He wouldn't usually come to see him. So he forced a smile and said, "Little Naraku, what brings you here?" Naraku, walking into the Hokage's office, seriously said to Hiruzen Sarutobi, "Third Hokage-sama, my Kekkei Genkai has reacted again. This time, it's two special dangerous species, which are dangerous creatures. I might need your help. These two dangerous species are essential for the two weapons I'm about to forge." Hiruzen Sarutobi naturally wouldn't refuse. After all, the weapons forged would also benefit Konoha's overall combat strength. If the weapons didn't end up in the Uchiha's hands, that would be even better. So, he tentatively asked, "Do you have any plans for those two weapons?" "Don't misunderstand. I'm just curious." Naraku looked at Hiruzen Sarutobi, who seemed to be trying to trick an 8-year-old, and continued to feign ignorance. "I have a premonition that these two weapons have certain requirements for their owner, so I don't know who to give them to. I plan to try them out in Konoha and see who can master them." Hiruzen Sarutobi and Danzo Shimura's eyes lit up upon hearing this, both a little eager to try. However, Hiruzen Sarutobi, as the Hokage, still had his rationality, so he asked, "Are these two dangerous species you mentioned very strong? How do they compare to the one in the Konoha forest last time?" Naraku honestly replied, "It's not that kind of extremely strong, but a very special kind. I have a premonition that one dangerous species has a curse poison that kills on touch and terrifying speed. The other is similar to a spider, but it seems to control dead enemies through spider silk. The raw strength of both dangerous species should be similar to the last one, or perhaps even a bit weaker. The main thing is that their abilities are a bit tricky." Listening to Naraku's explanation, Hiruzen Sarutobi found it a bit difficult. But as Naraku continued to explain, "According to my observation and perception, one of the monsters seems to possess a curse poison that kills on touch. The other monster seems to be able to control corpses in battle. I think I can utilize these two characteristics separately to forge two treasured ninja swords. If I'm lucky, I might even add some other abilities or characteristics." Hiruzen Sarutobi was very tempted upon hearing this. It could be said that these two ninja swords, just based on the concept, were incredibly powerful. However, even he might not be able to deal with that curse poison. If Chunin or Clan Jonin were sent, there might be casualties. Just as Hiruzen Sarutobi was still deliberating, Danzo suddenly jumped out. Danzo forced his fierce face to become benevolent and said, "It seems the third Hokage is in a bit of a predicament. My root will take on this matter. But you must let our root test the ninja swords first." Hearing Danzo's promise, Hiruzen Sarutobi felt betrayed, but in front of outsiders, he couldn't argue with Danzo. So he planned to find another opportunity later. Moreover, entrusting this matter to Root would weaken Root's strength, and if he could get the ninja swords into his own faction's hands, it would be a huge profit. Naraku saw that Hiruzen Sarutobi didn't seem to object, so he nodded and said, "Then I thank Danzo-sama." Returning to the Uchiha clan compound, Naraku saw Uchiha Min waiting for him and knew it was likely about the weapons. "Uchiha Senjutsu came to see me. But I refused." "Naraku, I understand you. You're just like me, a child who isn't good at expressing himself but always keeps his clan members in his heart," Uchiha Min said earnestly to Naraku. Naraku could only express, "I'm not. I didn't." However, as the energy in Naraku's hands and his own strength grew, Naraku's thoughts about the Uchiha clan changed. He suddenly felt that he had been too limited before. In the future, when he controlled the Uchiha clan, he would allow the Uchiha clan and the Senju clan to intermarry. Then Naraku would selectively bestow weapons. If one person's bloodline wasn't enough, then two. If two weren't enough, then three. If three weren't enough, then mixed blood. If mixed blood didn't work, then the more, the merrier. In the future, even if the entire Otsutsuki clan came to the ninja world, they would have to call him Grandpa. Of course, it was also possible that with the system's upgrade, he could directly obtain weapons that would crush the Otsutsuki clan. However, those were all uncertain, so Naraku decided to secure something definite first. Naraku then informed Uchiha Min about the previous deal with Hiruzen Sarutobi and Danzo Shimura. Uchiha Min didn't understand at first, but when Naraku said that he was doing it so the Uchiha wouldn't make useless sacrifices, Uchiha Min seemed to see a light around Naraku. Then Naraku sincerely said to Uchiha Min, "Elder, I really want to improve." Uchiha Senjutsu nodded in satisfaction and said, "Good. I will fully support you." The location chosen for this dangerous species capture was a root base. From the outside, this base looked like a mound, but inside, it was actually a world of its own. The entire base was surrounded by thick walls, with almost no vulnerabilities for infiltration. Hiruzen Sarutobi saw that even one of Danzo's bases could be so extravagant, and his face was dark the entire time he entered the base. Once inside, Naraku finally saw the central layout. In the center, several root ninja were ready to use sealing jutsu at any moment, and outside the central area, there were densely packed root ninja waiting for orders. Naraku consciously walked a little outside the central area and released the curse poison beast. As Naraku released the curse poison beast, the ninja positioned in the center immediately activated the 4 violet flames formation. It was then that everyone saw the appearance of the curse poison beast. Surprisingly, this curse poison beast didn't look fierce. It resembled an enlarged rabbit, though its eyes were an unsettling crimson and its teeth were pure black. The ninja inside the 4 violet flames formation immediately launched an attack upon seeing the curse poison beast, using Senbon, Shuriken, and fire release all at once. However, with a quick movement, the curse poison beast dodged all of the ninja's attacks. The curse poison beast was not as docile as it appeared and also launched an attack on the ninja. One root ninja was happily throwing shuriken when he suddenly discovered a small cut on his hand. Immediately after, countless curse marks began to rapidly spread from the root ninja's wound. In less than a second, the curse marks covered the root ninja's entire body, and then the root ninja collapsed and fell asleep. Hiruzen Sarutobi, who was watching the curse poison beast's performance from the side, broke out in a slight cold sweat. He had previously thought of dealing with the curse poison beast himself. Now that he had seen the curse poison beast's methods, he could only say it was too bizarre. Even a small cut from it would result in instant death. Even he couldn't guarantee 100% evasion from the curse poison beast's attack just now. After all, the curse poison beast could make countless mistakes, while he could only make one. Danzo Shimura, however, had a different thought upon seeing this scene, this terrifying curse poison, with its touch and die characteristic. If he could obtain this weapon, wouldn't he be able to kill anyone he wanted? Danzo Shimura even glanced at his old friend Hiruzen Sarutobi beside him, thinking that if this old friend was unwilling to give up the power in his hands and hand over the Hokage position to him, then he had no reason to exist. Danzo's dark thoughts made Hiruzen Sarutobi feel a chill down his spine, which he simply attributed to the root base being too cold. Regarding their friendship, one could only say it was heartbreaking. Naraku watched as the number of root ninja inside the barrier dwindled. Now, only one root ninja was using substitution jutsu and clone jutsu to look for an opportunity to counterattack, and he was a bit worried about how to deal with the curse poison beast inside. Suddenly, Danzo formed a hand seal, and all the ninja inside the 4 violet flames formation instantly exploded, including the root ninja who was still maneuvering. It was then that Naraku discovered that all the root members had countless explosive tags on them. Naraku's only comment on this was, as expected of Danzo, he's truly despicable. Naraku indicated that he still had much to learn in this regard. The powerful explosion directly shattered the entire 4 violet flames formation, and the 4 ninja who had just cast the 4 violet flames formation were also sent flying by the explosion. Immediately after, the root ninja waiting outside decapitated the bloodied curse poison beast. Naraku observed Root's coordination and could only say it was impressive. Hiruzen Sarutobi, on the other hand, was not very happy, perhaps feeling a bit ashamed, as this fighting style did not quite conform to the will of fire. Naraku watched as the curse poison beast was decapitated, and he also sent a clone to put the curse poison beast into a pre-made container. Just as Naraku was about to release the second dangerous species, Hiruzen Sarutobi stepped forward. "Little Naraku, let me handle this second special dangerous species. If it's simply about controlling the dead, then the fewer people dealing with it, the better." It could be said that with Hiruzen Sarutobi's stance, Naraku's impression of him immediately improved somewhat. Hiruzen Sarutobi at this time still deserved the title of ninja hero. However, compared to Hiruzen Sarutobi, Danzo Shimura was truly like a rat in a sewer, unable to face people. It was no wonder Hiruzen Sarutobi never worried about Danzo becoming Hokage. Naraku suspected that Danzo's chances of becoming the official Hokage might even be less than his own. Danzo watched Hiruzen Sarutobi slowly walk to the center of the base, feeling only disgust. When the second Hokage chose to stay behind, Hiruzen Sarutobi was the first to volunteer and consequently gained the Hokage position. Now, with few people in this root base, Hiruzen Sarutobi was still trying to win hearts. Hiruzen Sarutobi told the surrounding root ninja to retreat, then used summoning jutsu. As a puff of smoke drifted away, a stout-limbed ape appeared before everyone. It was Monkey King Enma. Monkey King Enma looked around but found no enemies, so he asked Hiruzen Sarutobi, "Old friend, is there something you need?" Hiruzen Sarutobi replied, "An enemy will appear soon, transform." Naraku looked at the Monkey King, Enma, transforming into an adamantine staff with a look of surprise and wonder. Judging by Naraku's own standards, the Monkey King, Enma, if considered a weapon aid, could definitely play a greater role for Hiruzen Sarutobi than a typical A-rank weapon. Naraku slowly walked to the center and released the spider demon. The appearance of this spider was exactly as expected. It was a pure, massive spider. The only surprising thing was its immense size, standing a full 10 meters tall. The body of this giant spider was covered in a layer of hard, black carapace, shimmering with a cold light. Its 8 thick legs supported its massive body, and each step caused the ground to tremble. Its sharp fangs and pointed claws were even more chilling. Hiruzen Sarutobi did not hold back. He immediately enlarged the adamantine staff in his hand and delivered a powerful blow to the spider demon. The force of this blow was strong, but it only made the spider demon a little dizzy. It wasn't enough to instantly kill it. What followed was a physical struggle between Hiruzen Sarutobi and the spider demon, back and forth. Throughout, Hiruzen Sarutobi effortlessly employed various ninjutsu. These were used for harassment, defense, or auxiliary attacks, demonstrating remarkable finesse. It could be said that Hiruzen Sarutobi had a very broad mastery of basic ninjutsu, which explains why he was able to train the 3 Sannin. Through this, Naraku also discerned Hiruzen Sarutobi's fighting style, relying on the incredibly powerful adamantine staff for direct confrontation. Due to his mastery of numerous ninjutsu, he could also easily counter enemies with elemental advantages. This fighting style, which relies on overwhelming opponents with strength, was indeed formidable, and it was precisely because of this that Hiruzen Sarutobi temporarily became the strongest combatant in Konoha. Unfortunately, Hiruzen Sarutobi was ultimately just a mortal without any bloodline limit. In this cheat-filled ninja world, he still had his limits. Soon, the spider demon was battered into a daze by Hiruzen Sarutobi. Of course, this was also because its puppets had not been transported over. If the spider demon's puppets were included, even Hiruzen Sarutobi would not find it so easy to quickly defeat this spider demon. Seeing the spider demon seemingly unconscious and sprawled on the ground, Hiruzen Sarutobi formed hand signs again and used Shadow Clone Jutsu, creating 4 shadow clones. Immediately after, Hiruzen Sarutobi's main body and his 4 clones simultaneously unleashed their respective ninjutsu. A roaring inferno erupted from Hiruzen Sarutobi's main body. One of his clones summoned a dazzling bolt of lightning, accompanied by a thunderous roar, striking the spider demon fiercely. Another clone manipulated water, forming a surging torrent that engulfed the spider demon. Yet another clone conjured a sturdy earth wall, like an insurmountable fortress, blocking the spider demon's path, and the last clone whipped up a furious whirlwind, howling as it assailed the spider demon. These ninjutsu of different attributes, like a storm, instantly poured down upon the spider demon. For a moment, brilliant lights intertwined, forming a breathtaking spectacle. However, this was not the end. Immediately after, an earth-shattering explosion occurred, a massive blast. Under the impact of this powerful force, the spider demon's head was blown to pieces, like shattered porcelain. Its grotesque and twisted face was instantly torn apart, revealing its dark, hollow internal structure. Naraku, who had enjoyed this ninjutsu feast, gave a high appraisal. Hiruzen Sarutobi, I declare you the strongest master of the 5 elements among ordinary ninja. Then Naraku immediately began extracting from the spider demon on the spot. Naraku continuously carved various curse marks onto the spider demon's body. Although Hiruzen Sarutobi was also tempted by Naraku's forging techniques, his rationality held him back. He wasn't sure why Naraku was so lax in protecting his secret techniques. He could only have Danzo Shimura and his subordinates withdraw from the base to give Naraku space. Of course, Hiruzen Sarutobi and Danzo Shimura, those two old foxes, wouldn't be as honest as they appeared. They only had the visible personnel withdraw, while some people in the shadows were frantically recording the patterns Naraku was carving. Naraku didn't mind this at all. These curse marks weren't so easy to master, especially those related to imperial arms, which were on another level of complexity. If it weren't for the memories instilled by the system, even Naraku, with his current A-rank blacksmith level, wouldn't have mastered them so quickly. Moreover, ordinary blacksmiths need a lot of time to possibly raise their forging level to A rank. Naraku even suspected that even with the necessary training, many people might never become A-rank blacksmiths in their lifetime. Naraku guessed that the forging of imperial arms in the Akame ga Kill world was definitely not done by one person, but by a forging department. Each person would be responsible for a specific part, and only then could a complete imperial arm be forged. A few hours later, by this time, Naraku had carved dense curse marks all over the spider demon's body. Naraku cut off the hardest claw tips from the spider demon. The dead spider demon's hardness had greatly decreased, which was why Naraku could easily cut them off. Afterward, Naraku sent out several shadow clones to roast the spider demon's remains. Eventually, under the influence of the curse marks and flames, the entire spider demon transformed into 200 milliliters of black liquid. Naraku poured the liquid into a container and quickly left the root base. Naraku had to forge the weapon quickly, as he was concerned that over time, the biological material's activity would be lost. Upon arriving at the forging room, Naraku took out the spider demon essence, 10 portions of orichalcum, 10 kilograms of refined iron, 1 portion of green scarlet sand iron, and 1 portion of scarlet ore. Then, as usual, he used shadow clone jutsu to create several clones. Clone number 1 was smelting the orichalcum metal. Clone number 2 was processing the refined iron, as well as the green scarlet sand iron and the scarlet ore. Naraku first directly forged the orichalcum into a rough blank. Next, Naraku performed a series of secret forging techniques to hammer the mixed substance and engrave specific patterns. Then, the spider demon's biological essence was integrated into the main body of the sword, and special patterns were meticulously carved onto the main material. Finally, Naraku took out the refined iron, green scarlet sand iron, and scarlet ore that clone number 2 had processed. Filling the sword body's frame, the sword blank quickly took shape. Naraku hammered the sword blank, and gradually, under Naraku's forging, the sword blank was completed. The final weapon became a black longsword. Ding! Congratulations, blacksmith! You have forged an A-rank weapon, March of the Dead Yatsufusa. Naraku routinely checked the sword's attributes. March of the Dead Yatsufusa, A-rank weapon. This sword was forged using extremely fresh biological materials and a large amount of precious materials, orichalcum, scarlet sand iron, scarlet ore, refined iron. A standard sword-type imperial arm secret technique was used during the forging process. It took 1 day to forge. It ultimately surpassed the original weapon slightly. This sword is single-edged, 1.3 meters long, possesses the sturdy and sharp characteristics, and has a strong ability to conduct chakra. Skills. 1. It can manipulate those slain by this sword through a curse. A maximum of 8 corpse puppets can be controlled. The puppets look exactly as they did in life and can be manipulated freely. Upon deactivating the ability, they will revert to ordinary corpses. 2. It has an enhancing effect on chakra of a single attribute. Debuff. The more corpses controlled during Yatsufusa's activation, the more the host's own abilities will be reduced. Naraku looked at the March of the Dead Yatsufusa in his hand, feeling a bit helpless. He had originally wanted to add some other biological materials to this sword, but he wasn't sure if it was due to the erosion of a special dangerous species that prevented him from adding the abilities of some common dangerous species. However, it wasn't as if there was no chance for it to become stronger. If there were other valuable ore materials or biological materials, this sword could still be further enhanced. At this moment on the Land of Rain battlefield, Konoha ninja were confronting Iwagakure ninja. Leading Konoha was Orochimaru, who had not yet earned the title of Sannin, while leading Iwagakure was the steel puppet known as Tetsu, who bore the title, Iron Earth. Orochimaru narrowed his eyes, carefully scrutinizing this Iwagakure leader, Tetsu. he noticed that Tetsu's physique was completely different from Onoki's. Onoki was short and lean, while Tetsu was tall and robust. His build was burly and muscular, giving off a powerful sense of oppression. Tetsu's face appeared particularly fierce, with an air of authority in his brow. Compared to the simple and honest image of ordinary Iwagakure people, his facial features were sharper and more resolute. Orochimaru secretly mused that this Tetsu seemed difficult to deal with. His appearance and demeanor both indicated that his strength was not to be underestimated. Orochimaru decided to proceed with caution and not take him lightly. Orochimaru recalled the intelligence on this Tetsu before him. The information was scarce. The only revealed detail was that he had cultivated Earth Style hardening technique to a very high level. Earth Style hardening technique is a jutsu that hardens one's body to be tougher than rock, thereby reducing physical attack damage. Tetsu scornfully shouted at Orochimaru, "Is Konoha village so devoid of talent? To send an unknown nobody to the battlefield?" His words were full of provocation and ridicule. Orochimaru's lips curled slightly into a sinister smile, and he sneered, "Quite the opposite. I intend to use your head to make a name for myself." His eyes gleamed with confidence and ruthlessness. Tetsu's eyes widened in fury, and he roared, "Then let's see if you have enough strength." Before he finished speaking, he lunged at Orochimaru like a fierce tiger. The Iwagakure ninja behind Tetsu, seeing their superior's bravery, followed him, charging forward valiantly. They let out roars, their morale high. "Charge!" Orochimaru commanded, his voice cold and firm. Upon hearing the order, the Konoha ninja charged forward fearlessly. They gripped their weapons tightly, their eyes burning with the passion of battle. The atmosphere on the battlefield was tense and fierce, with both sides' momentum continuously rising. Orochimaru didn't hesitate to bite his finger, letting the blood drip onto the ground, and quickly formed hand seals, summoning jutsu. In an instant, a cloud of smoke rose, and a giant snake head emerged from it. The giant snake opened its massive maw, letting out a deafening hiss. "It's Lord Orochimaru's summoned beast, Manda. Iwagakure, you're all going to be swallowed whole by the snake." The Konoha ninja's confidence also soared upon seeing Manda, summoned by Orochimaru. After all, large summoned beasts are very helpful in war. Any of their movements can cause immense damage to opponents. Manda didn't care what the ninja thought, only coldly stating, "Orochimaru, I want 100 human sacrifices. You can eat the Iwagakure ninja to your heart's content." After receiving Orochimaru's affirmative reply, Manda began to move towards the Iwagakure position. Every movement Manda made caused immense damage to the Iwagakure ninja along its path. Seeing this, Tetsu was also enraged. He immediately formed hand seals and used Earth Style, Earth Spear technique, creating sharp rocks on the ground where Manda was passing to attack it. Manda cried out in pain from being pierced and thrashed violently on the battlefield. Orochimaru understood his summoned beast. If it didn't gain any benefits later and was severely injured, Manda would definitely run back to the summoning realm without a second thought. It might even shout a reminder about its sacrifices before fleeing. Orochimaru drew the treasured sword Kiri no Ikimonji, gifted by Naraku, preparing to strike Tetsu. Tetsu also sensed this. However, he pretended not to notice and showed no reaction, instead secretly using Earth Style, Earth Spear technique. This jutsu allows the body to become as hard as diamond. It is a highly versatile jutsu that hardens the skin by flowing chakra throughout the body, maximizing defense while enhancing the destructive power of physical attacks. While defending, it can convert defensive power into offensive power, causing damage to the opponent as well. Orochimaru also knew that the person before him might be using a jutsu similar to a hardening technique, but he did not retreat in the slightest. He placed his confidence in this treasured sword. Orochimaru furiously poured Yang attribute chakra into Kiri no Ikimonji, then delivered a full power slash. Tetsu, who had been full of confidence, saw the faint black glow of the treasured sword in Orochimaru's hand. His hairs immediately stood on end. His instincts told him he couldn't withstand this strike. So, he further strengthened his body's hardening while quickly retreating backward. It must be said that ninja are different from pirates. A man in the pirate world who used iron body would never easily retreat. Orochimaru's sword was ultimately blocked by Tetsu's arm, but the powerful kinetic energy attached to Kiri no Ikimonji did not dissipate. Instead, it instantly poured into Tetsu's arm. Although Tetsu's diamond-hard skin could resist most attacks, facing this powerful kinetic energy, he could only struggle to hold on. In just a moment, his skin was cut open by a deep wound, and blood immediately flowed out. As the kinetic energy continued to dissipate, Tetsu was sent flying and crashed heavily to the ground. He couldn't help but change his expression drastically, his heart filled with shock and doubt. Originally, he thought his ninjutsu could easily snap Orochimaru's sword and even inflict counter damage on the opponent. However, reality slapped him hard, making him realize his judgment was wrong. To Tetsu's surprise, Orochimaru's treasured sword was so sharp that it could pierce through his well-trained body and the defense provided by his perfected earth style, earth spear technique. After all, based on experience, although the earth style, earth spear technique had the weakness of inconvenience due to hardening, it should theoretically only be countered by lightning release ninjutsu with lightning nature transformation. Ninjutsu capable of breaking through earth spear should not exist. Yet today, he was broken through by Orochimaru's single sword strike. This situation was completely beyond his expectations, but it would only go so far. It's just a cut, watch me immediately seal the wound on my arm. Tetsu immediately used chakra to prepare to seal the 20-centimeter cut on his arm. To his surprise, the small wound that he could usually easily seal with chakra was now bleeding out continuously as if a floodgate had opened. While Tetsu was attempting to heal his wound, Orochimaru didn't stop, continuously wielding the Kiri no Ikimonji in his hand, performing the Konoha-style swordplay that he had long since mastered. Tetsu, left with no choice, formed hand seals to use earth release, earth sphere technique, creating an earth sphere to temporarily encase himself. Orochimaru looked at the earth sphere before him and did not try to destroy it. Instead, he continued to order Manda to destroy the Iwagakure position, while he himself casually picked off nearby lucky individuals. Inside the earth sphere, Tetsu found that he couldn't use chakra or simple first aid to stop the bleeding from the wound, he could only use the earth style, earth spear technique to completely seal the wound. That is, to completely harden that area of skin, but even so, the wound was still slowly seeping blood. However, he had no choice, he had to go out and confront Orochimaru, otherwise, Orochimaru and his summoned beast would inflict too much damage on the Iwagakure ninja. Having made up his mind, Tetsu exited the earth sphere and, seeing Orochimaru bullying an Iwagakure chunin, immediately rushed over. Tetsu spat out a small pebble from his mouth, which then grew larger in midair, like a solid cannonball, hurtling towards Orochimaru. This was Iwagakure's signature ninjutsu, earth release, rock iron bullet technique. Orochimaru naturally wouldn't be hit by the ninjutsu before him, easily dodging the attack. In fact, ninja battles generally require specific timing for ninjutsu usage, it's not like mages just spamming spells. If the timing isn't right, carelessly using ninjutsu is just a waste of chakra. Of course, this is the fighting style of most ordinary Kage level and below. If it's truly like Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama's level, ninjutsu clashes are normal. So, you're finally willing to come out of the earth sphere? Orochimaru said mockingly. This time, Tetsu changed his previously hot-headed personality, suppressing his inner rage to continue fighting Orochimaru. This time, Tetsu planned to be more careful, primarily using ninjutsu supplemented by taijutsu in combat. This was a significant weakening of his combat power, but Tetsu had no weapon that could clash with Orochimaru's treasured sword. That characteristic of incessant bleeding was truly too disgusting. And facing Tetsu's attempt to primarily use ninjutsu in combat, Orochimaru naturally wasn't afraid. In fact, one could say this was his advantage. Orochimaru's role was more that of a ninjutsu-type ninja. It was just unfortunate that Tetsu's defense was impenetrable, leaving his snake-based secret techniques with no room to be used. However, although the two rarely engaged in taijutsu combat, there were inevitably times when they did. Tetsu also knew that Orochimaru's ordinary sword strikes were unlikely to cause large-scale cuts, but when the sword glowed black, that was something he absolutely had to dodge. Fire release. Great Dragon Fire Technique. Orochimaru formed hand seals and spewed a fire dragon from his mouth, flying towards Tetsu. Tetsu, left with no choice, performed Earth Release, Earth Flow River, Sea. He slammed his hand on the ground, causing a large slab of earth to flip up in front of him, blocking the opponent's physical attack. Unfortunately, this ninjutsu couldn't fully block the Fire Dragon technique. He was sent flying by the Great Dragon Fire technique. At this point, he could be said to be nearing his limit. The large wound on his arm was still constantly seeping blood, and the unavoidable taijutsu combat with Orochimaru had also added some small wounds to his body. He was currently still using hardening jutsu to seal these small wounds, which also consumed chakra. In fact, if it weren't for his high proficiency, he wouldn't be able to simultaneously use hardening jutsu, fight, and perform other ninjutsu. Furthermore, he had to abandon his personal advantage to play ninjutsu with Orochimaru, and in ninjutsu combat, he appeared very disheveled. And as more and more blood flowed from his body, his stamina and chakra were rapidly declining. Tetsu looked at the surrounding situation, his heart sinking. Their side had completely fallen into a disadvantage. That hateful Manda was opening its gaping maw, frantically devouring Iwagakure ninja on the battlefield. And on his side, he couldn't defeat Orochimaru. He knew that if this continued, they would soon be defeated by Orochimaru. At that time, the Iwagakure ninja on the battlefield would face total annihilation. There would be no good outcome. Tetsu gritted his teeth, finally making up his mind, and shouted to the Iwagakure ninja on the battlefield, "Retreat! Retreat!" His voice carried a hint of helplessness and unwillingness, but he knew that only by preserving their strength now could they have a chance to make a comeback. Upon hearing the order, the Iwagakure ninja began to retreat. Although they were somewhat unwilling, they also understood that the current situation was unfavorable for them. They could only temporarily abandon the fight and seek new opportunities. As the Iwagakure ninja retreated, the battlefield became chaotic. Orochimaru naturally wouldn't let the Iwagakure ninja off so easily. He also ordered the Konoha ninja, pursue the Iwagakure ninja with full force. And he himself focused on Tetsu, the leader of the Iwagakure forces. If he could kill him, this war could be considered perfect. Seemingly realizing that retreat wasn't so easy, the Iwagakure people also began to frantically use Earth Release ninjutsu. Especially the Earth Release. Rock Iron Bullet technique was used in large numbers by the Iwagakure ninja, which prevented the Konoha ninja from pursuing immediately, forcing them to first use ninjutsu for defense. Some Konoha ninja were even directly taken out because they couldn't dodge this wave of attacks. Orochimaru naturally knew about this situation, but this was war. As Iwagakure's wave of Earth Release, Rock Iron Shot jutsu attacks ended, Orochimaru's lips curled into a cold sneer. He quickly formed hand seals, hidden shadow snake hands. No sooner had he spoken than multiple large snakes instantly materialized from Orochimaru's arms, coiling around Tetsu while also trying to find his blind spots to bite him. Tetsu cursed inwardly, but at this moment, he had no choice. He could only push his physical limits again, using Earth Spear to harden his body, then forcefully breaking free from the snakes wrapped around him. However, when Tetsu opened his eyes, he didn't continue to flee. Instead, he stared intently at Orochimaru. At this moment, a strong will to die had surged within him. He knew he would most likely not escape, so he decided to engage Orochimaru in a one-for-one duel to the death. Even if it meant dying, he would do his utmost to slow Orochimaru's pursuit of Iwagakure. This way, his sacrifice would not be in vain. Orochimaru looked at Tetsu's dangerous eyes, knowing that Tetsu was most dangerous at this moment, so Orochimaru's offensive turned defensive. Tetsu again felt the uncontainable wounds on his body, then looked at Orochimaru with angry eyes and said, "Orochimaru, I never thought Konoha would stoop to Kurigakure's tactics. You only defeated me because of that blade." Upon hearing this, Orochimaru seemed to recall something, and his lips curved slightly upward as he said, "Hee, that's right. This blade did help me a lot, but it's just a tool. What truly defeated you was your arrogance. But since you're so eager to know, then remember this blade's name, Kiri no Ikimonji." Tetsu listened to Orochimaru's words, his heart filled with unwillingness and rage. He widened his eyes, glaring fiercely at the blade in Orochimaru's hand, as if to engrave it into his heart. However, he also knew clearly that the situation could no longer be changed. Thus, Tetsu completely abandoned his defense. He knew he had no chance now and could only make one last struggle. He concentrated all his strength into his fists and feet, preparing to launch a final attack. Although he knew it might be futile, he still wanted to try. At least he wouldn't let Orochimaru succeed easily. His body became incredibly hard, each punch carrying immense impact, each kick capable of shaking the ground. However, Orochimaru was not affected by Tetsu's attacks. he skillfully used substitution jutsu, clone jutsu, and flexible movement to repeatedly evade Tetsu's assaults. As time passed, Tetsu's movements began to slow, his stamina gradually depleting. Meanwhile, Orochimaru took the opportunity to inject more yang release chakra into Kiri no Ikimonji, preparing to deliver a fatal blow to Tetsu. When Orochimaru swung Kiri no Ikimonji again, Tetsu immediately noticed the black light on the sword. He realized this was a dangerous sign. He hurriedly distanced himself from Orochimaru, but he didn't know this was a trap carefully designed by Orochimaru. Just as Tetsu tried to move away from Orochimaru, he suddenly found himself sinking into a quagmire. It turned out that Orochimaru had already set up this trap, waiting for Tetsu to walk right into it. Manda's battle array. Orochimaru directly prostrated himself on the ground, spitting out a large swarm of snakes from his mouth. The snakes quickly slithered towards Tetsu. It was predictable that once the snakes completed their encirclement, Tetsu would undoubtedly die. Earth release. Earth-style wall. Suddenly, 3 earth walls rose around Tetsu, directly blocking the snakes attempting to attack him. Joseki, what are you doing here? Hurry up and leave. Didn't you hear my order? Tetsu, seeing his subordinate come to save him, was not pleased but rather very angry. Joseki didn't say much. Big brother Tetsu, you've saved me many times, let me save you this one time. Remember, this is all for the village. Take the information back to the village. After speaking, Joseki leapt out of the earth-style wall. Orochimaru looked coldly at the unfamiliar ninja before him, thinking to himself, this person must be Tetsu's bodyguard, right? He had no intention of getting entangled with the opponent, he only wanted to bypass him and deal with Tetsu. So, Orochimaru's figure flickered, and he swiftly rushed to the side. Your enemy is me, Orochimaru. A flicker of determination flashed in Joseki's eyes. He no longer held back his chakra and quickly formed hand seals. Earth release. Earth pillar prison. As Joseki's low roar sounded, thick earth pillars instantly rose around Orochimaru, forming a sturdy cage that trapped him. However, this so-called cage could not hold Orochimaru for long. Orochimaru's lips curved slightly upward, revealing a disdainful smile. With a gentle wave of his hand, a sharp wind blade easily cut through the earth pillars. Nevertheless, Joseki was not discouraged. He took a deep breath and formed hand seals again. Earth release. Earth flow wave. After forming the seals, Joseki slammed his fist onto the ground. Instantly, the ground vibrated violently, shattering into countless small sand and rocks, and sweeping towards Orochimaru like a surging tide. Facing this overwhelming attack of sand and rocks, Orochimaru frowned slightly. Earth release ninjutsu could sometimes be a headache. It was very suitable for controlling opponents and thus delaying an offensive. Water release. Exploding water colliding wave. Orochimaru let out a soft cry, spewing a powerful stream of water from his mouth, like a fierce torrent, instantly scattering Joseki's sand and rocks. Orochimaru gathered chakra in his throat and then spat out enough water to form a lake, impacting Joseki's earth flow wave. Joseki hadn't even considered whether Orochimaru could handle the previous earth flow wave and use the last of his chakra directly. Earth release. Earth dragon. Joseki used earth release chakra to form a dragon of earth and rock with astonishing momentum, which lunged at Orochimaru. Orochimaru had no time to dodge the attack and was directly struck by the earth dragon. The formidable earth dragon fiercely slammed Orochimaru into the ground. But at this moment, Joseki did not go in for the kill but instead gasped for breath. As the person with the strongest life-saving abilities among the Hokage, Orochimaru would naturally not be defeated by a mere earth dragon. Orochimaru immediately activated Orochimaru-style substitution jutsu, slowly emerging from his own mouth. Gasping for breath, Joseki saw Orochimaru appear before him again and, bracing himself, launched a suicidal charge towards him. Orochimaru, seeing his enemy's tenacity, drew Kiri no Ikimonji and directly decapitated Joseki with a single stroke. By the time Orochimaru jumped back onto the earth wall, Tetsu had already used earth release, underground projection fish using chakra to turn solid sand and rock underground into a fluid, allowing him to swim quickly through the soil and escaped far away. Even Orochimaru couldn't pinpoint Tetsu's exact location. Manda had a satisfying meal this time. He slithered over to Orochimaru and said, "Orochimaru, next time there's something this good, call me." With that, he vanished in a puff of smoke. The Konoha ninja, realizing they couldn't pursue the enemy, retreated to their positions. They looked at Orochimaru, their eyes shining with admiration and excitement. All the Konoha ninja gathered around Orochimaru and shouted in unison, "Long live Lord Orochimaru!" The roar echoed like thunder, resonating through the battlefield for a long time. Immediately after, the cheers turned into a unified chant, "Long live Konoha! Long live Lord Third Hokage!" Every shout was filled with love and pride for the Konoha village. Orochimaru merely curved the corner of his mouth slightly. Meanwhile, in Konoha, Hiruzen Sarutobi received news of the great victory on the front lines not long after the battle. Although the exact casualties and enemy kills hadn't been tallied yet, the rough estimate showed a casualty ratio of 3 to 1. Especially in this battle, Kiri no Ikimonji directly broke through Tetsu's hardening jutsu and inflicted external wounds on Tetsu that couldn't be healed in a short time. While Tetsu's overconfidence in his defense played a role, it was undeniable that Kiri no Ikimonji significantly contributed to Orochimaru's victory. As far as he knew, the ninja sword, or rather, the subordinate tool, Kiri no Ikimonji, was not the limit of Naraku's weapon forging. The one-cut kill, Murasama, and the March of the Dead, Yatsufusa, which Naraku was currently forging, might have even more terrifying effects. He was increasingly looking forward to the imperial arms Naraku spoke of. The more Hiruzen Sarutobi realized Naraku's importance, the more he recalled Danzo's warnings to him. Hiruzen Sarutobi sighed, "Uchiha Naraku. If only you weren't an Uchiha." If Naraku knew, he could only reply, "You're dreaming. You want to have your cake and eat it too. Do you think you're T0? Hiruzen Sarutobi couldn't abandon Naraku, so he just massaged his temples, a slight headache bothering him. On the other side, Tetsu, upon returning to Iwagakure, briefly gave some instructions before collapsing due to excessive blood loss. Some Iwagakure medical ninja, disbelieving, tried to heal Tetsu's external wounds using medical ninjutsu, but found that medical ninjutsu had no effect on his injuries. They could only use physical methods to stitch up Tetsu's wounds and then use waterproof materials for forced hemostasis, continuously transfusing blood throughout the process. It could be said that this was the first time they had seen such a bizarre injury. Onoki, after listening to his subordinates' reports, understood the general situation of the battle. Less than 20% of the Iwagakure troops returned, and even if some hadn't returned yet, the total would likely be less than 30%. For a localized war, a 70% death rate was too cruel. While Iwagakure didn't lack 200 dead ninja, the death of Joseki still made him feel a bit pained. Although Iwagakure had many ninja, the proportion of ninja who could, or had the potential to, grow into elite jonin was relatively low. In his view, Joseki would have become an elite jonin with normal growth. And the ninja sword, Kiri no Ikimonji, in Orochimaru's hand, which Tetsu claimed could cause unhealable wounds, left Onoki a bit puzzled. After all, the Konoha village only had one famous ninja sword, the Raijin sword. It was impossible for Konoha to have a good weapon hidden away and unused all this time. Onoki could only hope that this was a ninja sword Konoha had acquired by luck. If Konoha produced a master blacksmith capable of forging weapons comparable to the 7 ninja swordsmen of the Mist's Blades, and then formed a Konoha 7 swordsman, the threat to other ninja villages would be quite significant. Someone, go investigate if Konoha has a new master blacksmith or the origin of the ninja sword Kiri no Ikimonji. After giving orders to his subordinates, Onoki looked out the window, deep in thought. Grandmother Chiyo in the Sunagakure camp. No, Chiyo was only 40 at the time. Chiyo's face still showed traces of her youthful beauty, she could be said to be gracefully aging. The Land of Rain itself was a three-way battleground for wind, fire, and earth, and even though Sunagakure hadn't participated in the previous battle, they were still very concerned about the great battle between Konoha and Iwagakure. Onoki took a small hit this time. But what's going on with Konoha? Weren't they at a slight advantage before? How did they suddenly become so powerful? Chiyo expressed some confusion. Then Chiyo also ordered her subordinates to investigate the specific details of the battle. It could be said that the entire ninja world was currently in a state where a major war was about to break out. Both large and small nations were relatively concerned about this localized war, and they all went to inquire about the specific situation. Turning back to Konoha, Hiruzen Sarutobi, unable to come up with a solution, decided to inform the general public and civilian ninja about the victory. He felt that news of the victory was needed to boost the morale of the people in Ninja, as the signs of a larger war had already appeared. The ordinary Konoha ninja also learned of Konoha's great victory, and those with slightly better information knew that Naraku's forged Kiri no Ikimonji had played a certain role in this localized battle. Naraku, your forged Kiri no Ikimonji is starting to become somewhat famous in battle. My water dragon sword can't fall behind. Tsukumo Hatake thought as he wiped his precious sword. And the great clans backed by the Hokage knew even more information, such as Naraku having forged 2 more powerful ninja swords, and that he was preparing to select a suitable owner for them in Konoha. In the Sarutobi clan compound, the Sarutobi clan's great elder was telling the elites of the clan below, Uchiha Naraku is about to forge 2 more powerful ninja swords. Our Sarutobi clan has a relatively early opportunity to test whether we can be compatible with those 2 ninja swords. You must seize this opportunity. Naraku, still forging in the smithy, had no idea that his ninja swords, not yet fully forged, were already being coveted by some. However, as his fame spread, his forging reputation value was also rapidly increasing. Although Uchiha Senjutsu of the Uchiha clan wasn't backed by the Hokage, the unique nature of the Uchiha clan still allowed him to receive news from the front lines. Seeing Orochimaru achieve a great victory using Kiri no Ikimonji, forged by his clansman Naraku, left a bitter taste in his mouth. More importantly, there was the arrangement for the 2 new ninja swords Naraku had forged. He found it somewhat unbearable for new ninja swords to be easily obtained by outsiders again. Although he wasn't a hawk, he still valued the clan's interests greatly. He prepared to seek out Uchiha men again to discuss whether Naraku could prioritize allowing members of the Uchiha clan to try if they were compatible with the ninja swords first. Chapter 31. At this moment, Naraku was in the blacksmith's workshop, focusing on forging the one-cut killer, Murasama, completely unaware of everything happening outside. Naraku was filled with anticipation for this soon-to-be-born blade. After all, it was the weapon owned by the female protagonist in the original story, and its powerful characteristics made Naraku yearn for it. This time, Naraku was exceptionally cautious, deciding to use shadow clones directly to handle the biological materials. According to his memories, there were once 10 blacksmiths who forged Murasama, but only 1 ultimately survived. And the reason that survivor lived was not because he was stronger than the other 9, but simply because when it was his turn, he happened to complete Murasama's forging. Fortunately, Naraku possessed the shadow clone jutsu, otherwise, he truly wouldn't dare to forge this sword. He quickly formed hand seals, shadow clone jutsu. As a puff of smoke dissipated, Naraku successfully created 5 clones. He then sent these 5 clones into the room to process the precious biological materials. Naraku's clone number 1 carefully took out the curse poison beast and began to slowly remove its fangs using tools. However, just as clone number 1 was steadily extracting the curse poison beast's fangs, an accident occurred. The curse poison beast's fangs directly tore through Naraku's glove and pierced into his palm. Ah! Clone number 1 screamed, then collapsed and died instantly. Next, clone number 2 took over the heavy task. This time, clone number 2 chose to thicken his gloves and then used the same method to extract the curse poison beast's fangs. To Naraku's delight, clone number 2 succeeded this time. Clone number 2 slowly placed the fangs aside. Then, he and clone number 3 began to carve marks onto the curse poison beast with melted orichalcum. Clones number 2 and number 3 died before they were even halfway done with the carving. Clones number 4 and number 5 had to continue, and fortunately, clone number 5 managed to finish the last stroke before dying. The main body of Naraku, standing outside the door, chanted a spell to transform the curse poison beast's body into black biological essence. In just 1 short hour, Naraku experienced being poisoned to death 5 times. But the effect was also clear. His forging speed had increased significantly. Next, Naraku once again created 10 clones to handle the materials. The quantity of materials for this forging was similar to those used for forging Yatsufusa previously. Curse poison beast essence, curse poison beast fangs, 10 portions of orichalcum, 10 kilograms of refined iron, 1 portion of green scarlet sand iron, and 1 portion of scarlet ore. Clone number 1 was smelting the orichalcum metal. Clone number 2 was processing the refined iron, as well as the green scarlet sand iron and scarlet ore. Clone number 3 attempted to forge and fuse the orichalcum and curse poison beast fangs together to form the basic frame of the sword. Next, Naraku performed a series of forging secret arts to hammer the mixed material and engrave specific patterns. Afterward, Naraku took out the refined iron, green scarlet sand iron, and scarlet ore that clone number 2 had processed. Filling the sword frame, the blade blank quickly formed. Then, the biological essence of the curse poison beast was integrated into the main body of the blade, and special patterns were meticulously carved onto the material's surface. Clone number 4 died, clone number 5 died, until clone number 9 finally perfectly integrated the biological essence of the curse poison beast into the blade. Clone number 9 had just given himself a thumbs up before also dying. Finally, clone number 10 hammered the blade blank, and gradually, under clone no 10's hammering, the entire sword finally took shape. Congratulations, blacksmith, on forging an A+ ranked weapon, one-cut killer, Murasama. This was the highest ranked weapon Naraku had forged so far, even the infinitely evolving Oni possession couldn't compare. However, Naraku still had special expectations for Oni possession. He felt that the limit of Oni possession might be to surpass A rank and reach S rank. Naraku routinely checked the sword's attributes. One-cut killer. Murasama, A+ ranked weapon. This sword uses extremely fresh biological materials, perfectly retaining the curse poison beast's toxicity. Additionally, it uses a large amount of precious materials, orichalcum, scarlet sand iron, scarlet ore, and refined iron. Standard Imperial Arms secret arts for swords were used during the forging process. It took 1 day to forge. It ultimately surpassed the original weapon. This sword is single-edged, 1.32 meters long, possesses the characteristics of sturdiness and sharpness, and has a strong ability to conduct chakra. Skills. 1. Fatal blow. If struck by this demonic blade, one will be infected with a curse poison from the wound and swiftly die, with no known antidote. If certain conditions are not met, even the sword's owner will die instantly if cut. 2. Curse poison possession. After the sword owner and weapon achieve a certain level of compatibility, and the understanding of the weapon reaches its peak, one can use Murasama to cut oneself to initiate curse poison possession. At this time, the sword owner will not die, but will gain unprecedented terrifying speed. The lethal power of the curse poison will also rapidly increase. The drawback is that once possessed, the curse poison is very difficult to remove, and the sword owner will constantly endure tormenting pain, and even powerful killing intent will continuously surge from within. 3. Has an enhancing effect on a single attribute of chakra. Naraku looked at the 2 ninja swords before him and sighed in relief. 2 consecutive days of high-intensity forging had really taken a toll on him, especially with Murasama, where he was poisoned to death over a dozen times in 1 day. Now that the weapon was forged, Murasama's curse poison was ineffective against him, as his blacksmith passive, weapon sovereignty, could suppress weapon effects at will. Hokage's office. Naraku. Lord Hiruzen, the weapons have been forged. Hiruzen Sarutobi looked at the 2 similar-looking ninja swords and smiled. Little Naraku, when do you plan to start selecting their owners? Tomorrow. As Naraku's words fell, the entire Konoha began to eagerly await. After Naraku returned to the clan grounds, he also informed Uchiha Min, Elder, the weapon selection will begin tomorrow. Please gather the clan members. Uchiha Min asked with a hint of reluctance, does this weapon really require such compatibility? Do we need to prepare anything in advance? Naraku knew Uchiha Min wanted him to manipulate the process, and he certainly could have, but he didn't want to go back on his word and hand his sword to someone completely incompatible. Preparing for these 2 swords to choose their master is useless, so the more people who go tomorrow, the better. I can only guarantee similar compatibility, the swords will definitely belong to the Uchiha. Hearing Naraku's assurance, Uchiha Min also nodded. At the Hyuga clan grounds, in the clan head's meeting room, a branch family member was reporting to the main family about Naraku's impending selection of a master for his precious ninja sword. After listening to his subordinate's report, Hyuga Genkatsu, the elder of the Hyuga clan, said disdainfully, my Hyuga clan has the Hyuga Gentle Fist, we don't need these ninja swords at all. The Uchiha clan is also getting weaker and weaker, now they're even starting to rely on external objects. Clan head Hyuga Tenmei almost saw a vein pop on his forehead after hearing the elder's words. Does this old man even listen to what he's saying? No matter how strong the Hyuga gentle fist is, it still needs to hit the opponent. After hitting, it needs to connect combos, and even then, it only temporarily prevents the enemy from using chakra. It could be said that a slightly more powerful enemy would have countless opportunities to escape during this process. However, Naraku's ninja sword can kill with just a scratch. How outrageous is that? This stubborn old man in front of him, for the sake of the Hyuga clan's so-called honor and prestige, refuses to acknowledge others' strength. He had always wanted to change the current situation of the Hyuga clan. However, the current situation was that these conservative elders held the power of speech within the Hyuga clan. Even as the clan head, he couldn't openly defy them. He could only agree, saying, "Indeed, that's true. Then just send some people from the branch families. And since the Hokage has invited us, let the branch family manager take some ninja academy students from the branch families tomorrow. I'll also go and see." Hyuga Genkatsu glanced at Hyuga Tenmei and nodded. Seeing the elder nod, the other elders also agreed. At the Senju clan compound, Nawaki was pestering his older sister. "Sister, Master Naraku has forged powerful weapons again. This time, it's two very formidable ninja swords. Please take me tomorrow." Tsunade looked at Nawaki's appearance and, for some reason, suddenly felt a surge of irritation. She gave Nawaki a flick on the head and said, "Got it. We'll go together tomorrow." Jiraiya, who was peeking at an outdoor hot spring with his butt in the air, also heard the news. He decided to go see it tomorrow as well, as he was very curious about the ninja swords Naraku forged. The next day, at the Chunin exam arena, although it wasn't the Chunin exams, the entire venue was packed with people. Naraku stood in the center of the arena, with two ninja swords on a table in front of him. To the left and right sides of the arena's center, Root and Anbu members stood guard. On the stands, the Uchiha clan had the most attendees, almost everyone who had awakened their Sharingan, as well as Ninja Academy students who hadn't, had come. Uchiha Fugaku looked at Naraku, feeling a bit desperate. With his limited knowledge, he felt he probably wouldn't be able to avenge his wife's abduction. He always felt that his importance in his father's eyes was less than that of Naraku. Not many from the Hyuga clan came, just the clan head and some branch family members. The others included the Sarutobi clan, the Shimura clan, the Inoshika Cho trio, the Aburame clan, the Inazuka clan. The rest were small, insignificant clans and some civilian ninja. Some renowned strong individuals also came: Tsunade, Jiraiya, Tsukumo Hatake. Naraku checked the time and then began to explain the specific abilities of his two ninja swords. "The ninja sword on my left is called One Cut Killer, Murasama, part of the Imperial Armament series. I named the Imperial Armament series myself. It's mainly to differentiate it from the subordinate tools of forged before, like Kiri no Ikimonji. The difference between an Imperial armament and a subordinate tool is that Imperial armaments often have higher requirements and compatibility with their masters. If the ability and compatibility are insufficient, there can even be situations where the weapon turns against its master. Of course, the result is that Imperial armaments often possess stronger abilities." Listening to Naraku say that these weapons were even stronger than the long-renowned Kiri no Ikimonji, the people in the stands began to discuss in hushed tones. Naraku paused and continued, "One Cut Killer, Murasama has the ability to kill with a single cut. As long as someone is scratched by this blade, the curse poison on it will instantly spread throughout the enemy's body, and the enemy will drop dead instantly. And the ninja sword on my right, March of the Dead, Yatsufusa, its main ability is to control those slain by this blade through a curse. It can control up to 8 corpse puppets. The puppets look like they did in life and can be manipulated freely. After the ability is released, they revert to ordinary corpses. At the same time, these two blades possess the common characteristics of the ninja swords I forge: sturdiness and sharpness. I won't go into other specific functions or flaws. Actually, One Cut Killer, Murasama is a relatively strong, first strike kill weapon. Hiding its function would be more beneficial for the weapon's performance, but Naraku had to make a sacrifice for his reputation points." After listening to Naraku explain the ninja sword's abilities, the arena became quite chaotic. After all, both ninja swords possessed immense power. Any elite jonin who acquired one and used it well could directly contend with cage-level powerhouses. Naraku raised his palm, and everyone quieted down. After all, he forged the swords, so everyone gave him face. Soon, I will select suitable masters for these 2 ninja swords. If you can hold the Imperial armament for 3 seconds and the Imperial armament does not resist, then you will have passed the preliminary assessment. One more thing. No chakra use is allowed. Naraku emphasized the rules. Then let's begin. Hiruzen Sarutobi, as the senior leader, spoke, and everyone began to test according to the pre-arranged order. First up were Danzo's root members. Naraku watched as masked figures passed before him one by one. Undoubtedly, they were not very compatible. In the ninja world, if one has powerful chakra, they can indeed forcibly suppress an imperial armament to use it, but in Naraku's view, utilizing an imperial armament in such a way was completely unnecessary. It was like Kakashi's Sharingan, useful, but not recommended. Danzo watched person after person fail, starting to suspect if Naraku was playing dirty tricks. Finally, it was Danzo's turn. Danzo's face was dark, he was almost certain Naraku was playing dirty. But when he grasped March of the Dead, Yatsufusa, he found that this imperial armament surprisingly didn't resist him. Could he be the legendary chosen one? Danzo's mood instantly shifted from anger to joy. And Naraku's surprised raised eyebrow only further confirmed this to Danzo. Naraku was indeed quite surprised. After all, the original owner of this blade was a short-haired, poker-faced, tsundere young girl like Kurome, who was very considerate to her comrades but cold-blooded towards enemies, valuing those around her so much that if a teammate was about to die, she would directly kill them to prevent them from leaving her. Naraku looked at Danzo. Kurome, poker-faced, tsundere, a handsome young man in his youth, cold-blooded towards enemies, values those around him, and will absolutely not forget to use you as long as you are useful. Well, he certainly checked all the boxes. Of course, Naraku didn't fully understand the specific reason either. After all, an imperial armament choosing a master couldn't just be based on a person's personality, preferences, or outward appearance. Perhaps Danzo was just lucky. Naraku watched as Danzo Shimura tightly gripped Yatsufusa, refusing to let go. Naraku felt helpless but didn't want to speak. So, he tried to signal Danzo Shimura with his eyes, hoping he would voluntarily release it. However, the old man Danzo Shimura either didn't see it or pretended not to, showing no intention of letting go. Hiruzen Sarutobi, standing next to Naraku, saw this scene and was very displeased. He felt that Danzo Shimura was being too excessive, and that this would delay the subsequent inspection process. Or was Danzo Shimura trying to prevent others from trying? So, he had no choice but to remind him, Danzo Shimura, put the ninja sword down. There are still others who need to be tested. Danzo Shimura, of course, understood that in this situation, he couldn't just snatch Yatsufusa and leave the scene. Doing so would only make him more embarrassed, as there were so many eyes watching them. Moreover, he didn't need to look back to guess that the Uchiha clan members were surely glaring at him with malicious and mocking gazes at that moment. Thinking of this, Danzo Shimura could only glare fiercely at Hiruzen Sarutobi, expressing his displeasure. But in the end, he helplessly released his grip and carefully placed Yatsufusa back on the platform, as if it were an incomparably precious treasure. With the conclusion of Danzo Shimura's route, it was the Uchiha clan's turn next. By this time, the Uchiha clan was already eager to try, and even the leaders of both the Hawk and Dove factions had issued orders that everyone must try their best and absolutely not hand over the 2 treasured ninja swords to outsiders easily. The first to step onto the platform was Uchiha Min. Before Uchiha Min took the ninja sword, Naraku exchanged a glance with him. Uchiha Min thought to himself, this future grandson-in-law still knows how to be considerate, but I don't need any underhanded tricks for a mere ninja sword. After all, I, Uchiha Min, have been through countless battles and possess an extremely strong will. How could I not be able to wield a mere ninja sword? Uchiha Min first picked up Murasama, and his expression instantly became serious. It seemed as if a terrifying force from the ninja sword was attacking him through his hand. If he had chakra, he could have tried to suppress it, but without being allowed to use chakra, he was instantly repelled by the ninja sword. It was then that Uchiha Min realized that mastering these 2 ninja swords might not be so simple, but Uchiha Min wasn't disappointed, as there was still the other one. He presumed his grandson-in-law had already arranged things for him, just waiting for him to pick up the other ninja sword and then thoroughly defeat the old scoundrel Danzo Shimura in the second round of selections. But when he picked up Yatsufusa, he found that this ninja sword was still the same as the previous one. Uchiha Min even felt that this ninja sword was about to shake him off immediately. Uchiha Min quickly seized the opportunity to wink at Naraku, but Naraku gave him a look that said, "You're on your own." Uchiha Min could only glare at Naraku and release the ninja sword, because he felt that if he didn't let go, it wouldn't be a simple shake-off anymore. Naraku was also speechless. "I gave you a look to tell you to just try and not force it, and you glared at me. You won't be glaring at me when the ninja sword cuts you." When Danzo Shimura saw Uchiha Min, who was the most disliked person in the Uchiha clan to him, suffer a setback, he immediately felt very pleased today. After Danzo Shimura put down the ninja sword, it was the Uchiha's turn, followed by the Sarutobi clan. Uchiha Makoto smiled sweetly at Naraku and said, "Naraku, can I master the ninja sword?" Naraku said affectionately to Uchiha Makoto, "Try it. If you can master it, that's fine. If you can't, I'll forge a suitable weapon for you in the future, and I'll protect you." Naraku's words made Makoto blush immediately. Watching Uchiha Min fume with anger, "That brat, he didn't give me any face just now, making me lose face in front of that Danzo Shimura. And now he's openly flirting with my granddaughter. If I don't teach him a lesson later, I'm not an Uchiha." Later, Uchiha Makoto tried it, but left with a little disappointment. Next were Uchiha Senjutsu and his son. This was the first time Naraku had seen the clan head since his rebirth. He looked no different from Uchiha Fugaku when he grew up, both having thick nasolabial folds. Uchiha Senjutsu politely said to Naraku, "My son was very offensive before, please don't take offense." Naraku generously replied, "I won't get angry with children." But what Naraku was thinking was, "Sorry, but I must get the position of clan head. As for your son, just be a good lackey for me, shine for the Uchiha, and work hard." Uchiha Senjutsu was also quite speechless at Naraku's answer, as if he remembered correctly, Naraku was several years younger than his son, Fugaku. Naraku watched as the number of people in the Uchiha's team dwindled, and he couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Could it be that the mighty Uchiha couldn't find anyone compatible with these two ninja swords? Naraku had originally thought that if the second round of tests wasn't too far off, he would manipulate things a bit, but so far, not a single person had passed the first round. Until a long-haired, straight-haired girl appeared at the end of the line. Her face had a naturally innocent expression, and Naraku's heart stirred, feeling that this young girl might be very suitable. Sure enough, the girl slowly picked up the ninja sword Murasama. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Murasama was held steadily in her hand. A soft murmur of discussion immediately arose from the audience. As compared to Yatsufusa, Murasama's abilities were clearly more impactful. Naraku asked the girl in front of him, "What's your name? Stand next to me later." The girl replied in a soft, sweet voice, "My name is Uchiha Hiro." Then, she obediently put down the ninja sword and walked to Naraku's side. Uchiha Hiro's action of picking up the ninja sword made the Uchiha clan members breathe a small sigh of relief. Next, it was Hiruzen Sarutobi and his Anbu's turn, but the results were disappointing. None of the Anbu were suitable for using this ninja sword. Especially when Hiruzen Sarutobi himself went up to test, he found it wasn't suitable. Danzo Shimura said sarcastically to Hiruzen Sarutobi, "Hiruzen, put the ninja sword down. There are still others who need to be tested." The subsequent experiments continued until the afternoon, with many familiar faces appearing on the platform during this process. For example, Kurenai Yuhi and Hayate Gecko of the Gecko clan. Even Tsunade and Jiraiya came up to try later, but unfortunately, they weren't chosen. What surprised Naraku the most was that Might Guy also came, but Guy wasn't there to ask for a ninja sword, but to ask Naraku to forge some auxiliary training equipment for him. Naraku naturally happily agreed. He still greatly admired the spirit of Guy and his father. Hyuga Miyabi watched as even some skilled civilian ninja began testing the ninja swords on stage, feeling a bit anxious. She was even afraid that in the end, the clan head, Hyuga Tenmei, wouldn't let them try. Ever since she was branded with the caged bird seal, she had grown increasingly desperate, but when she saw the ninja swords forged by Naraku, there always seemed to be a chance to change her fate and escape her cage. This made her urgently want to grasp this last, fleeting straw. Perhaps sensing Hyuga Miyabi's urgent mood, Hyuga Tenmei said to some Ninja Academy students from the branch family, "You all go try them out, but remember not to be rude." Naraku also saw Hyuga Miyabi, who was his contemporary. In Naraku's memory, this young girl was a very cheerful and cute girl before she was branded with the caged bird seal. Unfortunately, after being branded with the caged bird seal, she completely transformed into a quiet and inconspicuous person. Upon hearing this, Hyuga Miyabi relaxed a little, then grew nervous again, because she wasn't sure if she could bond with a ninja sword. And even if she did, how would she break free from her cage? After everyone before her failed, Hyuga Miyabi carefully picked up the one-cut killer, Murasama, but this ninja sword was completely unsuitable for her. She felt even more despair, until later Hyuga Miyabi picked up the March of the Dead, Yatsufusa. The same scene unfolded. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. The March of the Dead. Yatsufusa remained firmly clutched in the girl's hand, and the girl seemed unwilling to let go, holding the ninja sword tightly. Hyuga Tenmei was also very conflicted when he saw this scene. He had originally intended to challenge the clan elders and win over clan members by bringing people from the branch family. He hadn't expected this situation to arise. Now, all he could think about was how to shift the blame. Hyuga Tenmei kept telling himself that this was a necessary action to protect Hyuga Miyabi. Danzo next to him was practically overflowing with killing intent. He had originally thought that he was the only one in the entire Konoha who could bond with this imperial arm, but he hadn't expected an unexpected contender, and from the Hyuga branch family at that. Danzo immediately decided that if this girl dared to perform better than him in the second round, he would either kill her and take the sword, or, no, with his status as root leader and Konoha elder, he would directly demand it from the Hyuga clan, and surely the Hyuga clan wouldn't be so foolish. Naraku also watched Hyuga Miyabi with interest, not expecting that the Hyuga clan would actually have someone who could bond with an imperial arm. He had been thinking that perhaps he could obtain the Byakugan bloodline of the Hyuga clan through this. However, with Danzo watching covetously, Naraku knew that no matter what, he couldn't let Hyuga Miyabi pass the second round of the assessment, otherwise, it would be questionable whether Hyuga Miyabi would even see the sun the next day. Moreover, the Hyuga clan's subservient tradition would very likely directly force Hyuga Miyabi to offer up the imperial arm. So, he could only let Hyuga Miyabi suffer a little for now. Naraku kindly said to Hyuga Miyabi, "Put down the imperial arm and stand next to me." Hyuga Miyabi obediently stood next to Naraku. Afterward, no second person who could bond appeared until the very end. Naraku felt it was quite normal. He was already very happy to have unearthed 2 treasures this time. He hadn't expected that the ninja without fame would have such special abilities. Naraku guessed that they might have been lost among the crowd or died in battle due to various reasons. Furthermore, Naraku believed that those chosen by an imperial arm like this must possess some kind of talent awaiting his development. Later, without a doubt, since no second person could bond with one-cut killer, Murasama, Uchiha Hiro became the owner of one-cut killer, Murasama. Naraku solemnly handed one-cut killer, Murasama to Uchiha Hiro. "From now on, you are the owner of one-cut killer, Murasama. I hope you become a powerful ninja." Uchiha Hiro also nodded blankly. Then Naraku said to Danzo and Hyuga Miyabi, "Next, the 2 of you will proceed with the second round of the competition. You will inject chakra into the imperial arm March of the Dead, Yatsufusa. Whoever's imperial arm glows more brightly is more suitable for March of the Dead, Yatsufusa." In fact, this was all Naraku's fabrication. The actual discernment of compatibility was not determined by the glow after injecting chakra. Danzo grabbed March of the Dead, Yatsufusa, and began frantically injecting chakra into it. The March of the Dead, Yatsufusa emitted a powerful black light in his hand. Then Hyuga Miyabi timidly picked up the ninja sword and slowly injected chakra into it. Naraku looked at the darker but weaker light emanating from the March of the Dead, Yatsufusa, in Hyuga Miyabi's hand, and knew that the person before him was the most suitable for the March of the Dead, Yatsufusa. Danzo burst into laughter after seeing the faint light of the March of the Dead, Yatsufusa, in Hyuga Miyabi's hand. Naraku also said to Danzo, "Lord Danzo, it's clear that you are more suitable for March of the Dead, Yatsufusa." Naraku thought to himself, "Anyway, I'll fleece you and then slaughter you, so you can hold onto it for a while." Before Naraku could finish speaking, Danzo snatched the March of the Dead, Yatsufusa, from Hyuga Miyabi's hand. Hyuga Miyabi only felt a sense of loss, comforting herself, "It's okay, there was no hope after being branded with the caged bird seal anyway, right?" Afterward, Hyuga Miyabi left the venue as if her soul had been lost, returning to her clan's ranks. Her steps were somewhat unsteady, as if she had lost all her strength, and her face was as pale as paper. Back with her clan, Hyuga Miyabi's body trembled slightly, and her lips involuntarily pressed together, as if she was trying hard to control her emotions. Then Naraku began to explain the flaws and other abilities of March of the Dead, Yatsufusa to Danzo in detail. Yatsufusa possesses the characteristics of sturdiness and sharpness, and has a strong ability to conduct chakra. These are common characteristics of the ninja swords I forge, so I won't elaborate. In addition, Yatsufusa also has a reinforcing effect on single attribute chakra. The flaw of Yatsufusa is that the more corpses controlled during its activation, the more it will reduce the host's own abilities. In essence, it suppresses the host's attributes, such as consuming chakra and stamina. So, you need to make your own choice. Danzo was startled by Naraku's words, but upon closer thought, he realized it wouldn't affect him much. As long as he used this ninja sword to kill a few powerful ninja and then had them cooperate in battle, he wouldn't need to act himself at all. Next, Naraku inquired about Uchiha Hiro's situation. The Imperial Arm one-cut killer, Murasama, is very dangerous. Even if you are its owner, the same applies. If you get cut by it, you will die instantly. So, you must be careful. Does anyone in your family teach you swordsmanship? Uchiha Hiro shook her head. Naraku also felt speechless. Why were there so many parentless children in the ninja world? Thinking about the entire Team 7, with 4 people in one team, plus Sai and Yamato later, 6 people could only make up one pair of parents. Naraku earnestly said to Uchiha Hiro, "From now on, you will stay by my side. I will teach you swordsmanship well." Uchiha Hiro thought for a while and then agreed. Naraku, on the other hand, was thinking about how he could cultivate Uchiha Hiro into his trusted subordinate. Naraku planned to try the method of feeding, later to see if he could enter the girl's heart. Of course, Naraku was also worried about someone trying to seize the Imperial Arm, so he just wanted to keep her by his side and protect her. Naraku hadn't checked his Hall of Death in a long time, but he knew that the number of people inside his Hall of Death was constantly increasing. Naraku planned to go take a look when he had time. When Naraku returned to the clan compound with Uchiha Hiro, he immediately saw Uchiha Min, the old man, making a constipated expression. Seeing this, Naraku couldn't help but tease, "Shall I leave?" Uchiha Min glared at Naraku, then gave Uchiha Hiro a look, signaling her to step away. Little Hiro obediently left, leaving the space to the two of them. After Uchiha Hiro left, Uchiha Min finally replied, "Do you think I'm angry because I didn't get a ninja sword and lost face in front of Danzo? Let me tell you, I'm angry because you were clearly prepared long ago. If you had told me from the start, we wouldn't have been so passive. However, you did very well this time. Not only did you successfully balance the relationship between the clan and the Hokage faction, but you also cleverly sowed the seeds of discord between Danzo and Hiruzen Sarutobi." Naraku scratched his head, looking innocent, and said, "Actually, I really didn't think about sowing any seeds between them." He muttered to himself that at the time, he only wanted the Uchiha clan to get a ninja sword. As for whether Danzo could get Yatsufusa, he didn't care. Moreover, even if Danzo really got Yatsufusa, he could still provide assistance to Naraku. If Danzo could kill 10 or 8 cage level experts, Naraku would definitely enshrine Danzo. Of course, when he became worthless or his value decreased, Naraku would definitely be the first to kill him, because that dog Danzo had sent his subordinates to root for before. This move could only be called enduring hardship for future revenge. But would Danzo really honestly go to the battlefield himself to kill enemies? If Danzo targeted the strong individuals in the village, especially those he couldn't control, would he make a move? Now he was also curious. If Danzo killed an enemy with Yatsufusa, and then Naraku's Hall of Death summoned them, that would mean the soul belongs to him, and the body belongs to Danzo. Perfect. However, Naraku thought of something and said to Uchiha Min, "I didn't expect Danzo to be suitable for that ninja sword. Danzo has always had a great prejudice against the Uchiha. Our Uchiha Jonin will need to be careful later." Uchiha Min said meaningfully, "I know what you're thinking. If Danzo Shimura dares to lay hands on our Uchiha, we will lead a group of ninja families to force Hiruzen Sarutobi to dismiss Danzo. Even if Danzo doesn't lay hands on the Uchiha, as long as he lays hands on any family or ninja in the village, we can do the same. I didn't expect you, at such a young age, to have such insight in politics. Uchiha Naraku couldn't help but feel a bit helpless hearing this. Great Elder, please stop overthinking it. If you keep overthinking, the pot cage of the ninja world will almost be me. Uchiha Naraku could only quickly wave his hands to indicate that he didn't think that way, and then he left. Uchiha Min watched Naraku's departing back with a meaningful gaze, as if thinking, "Kid, I see right through you." After Naraku returned to his room, he opened the Hall of Death. He saw the Hall of Death densely packed with people, most of whom had Iwagakure headbands. It seemed Orochimaru was still fiercely fighting with Iwagakure recently. Tsukumo Hatake probably hadn't gone to the border recently, so he only killed some small fry. Those with strange headbands must have been killed by Tsukumo Hatake. If he remembered correctly, Tsukumo Hatake would continue to do routine missions in the village until Sunagakure attacked. Naraku also quickly arranged for the guys in the Hall of Death to discard their headbands and other items, put on the black jackets he provided, and wear masks. Naraku looked at the 2 Jonin and 30 Chunin inside and decided to name the Jonin, Jonin 1 foot and Jonin 2 feet, but not to name the Chunin. As for the Genin, Naraku was afraid they would affect others if they went out, as not all Genin were on the level of the Konoha 12 rookies. The Genin from small villages might even be worse than students in the Ninja Academy. Naraku checked the skill lists of the 2 Jonin and found that they were all regular Iwagakure ninjutsu, but these ninjutsu were very suitable for crowd control. From now on, he essentially had 2 Jonin level Iwa ninja guards. Naraku looked at the people in the Hall of Death and suddenly worried that, under normal circumstances, when people die, their souls go to the Pure Land. The Pure Land is the Six Paths Sage territory. Would this old man notice him constantly collecting souls? However, Naraku currently had no means to deal with the Six Paths Sage, and given the Six Paths Sage behavior in the original plot, where he wouldn't appear until a desperate situation, it was highly likely he wouldn't notice. Besides, his 2 sons' souls hadn't reincarnated yet. Just as he finished thinking, Naraku saw 2 unread notifications in the system interface and decided to open them. Ding, Orochimaru's utilization of Kiri no Ikimonji has reached an intermediate level. Talent replication activated. 8 Tails transformation technique incomplete mastered. 8 Tails transformation technique, an S-rank forbidden jutsu. Through biological modification and ninjutsu methods, one transforms into a white snake with 8 heads and tails. This jutsu has not yet been fully optimized by Orochimaru, so it is in its initial stage. Ding, Orochimaru's utilization of Kiri no Ikimonji has reached an advanced level. Talent replication activated. Summoning technique, impure world reincarnation incomplete. Summoning technique. Impure world reincarnation incomplete. This is an otherworldly summoning jutsu developed by the second Hokage, Senju Tobarama. It extracts a certain amount of the deceased's flesh, uses a living person's body as a vessel for the deceased soul, and then summons the deceased soul from the pure land of the underworld to the real world. The deceased soul attaches to the vessel, and the living person's body is covered with dust, thus transforming into the deceased's appearance in life. The deceased possesses the characteristic of being unkillable and limitless chakra. They can only be sealed or have the jutsu released by the original caster. Orochimaru has further optimized this jutsu, but the strength of the summoned deceased will still be greatly weakened. Naraku looked at the 2 notifications and chose to accept them. Then, a large amount of knowledge about forbidden jutsu flooded into Naraku's mind. Although both of these ninjutsu were forbidden jutsu, the 8 Tails transformation technique, needless to say, Naraku definitely wouldn't use. Now Naraku understood why Orochimaru liked to lick things with his tongue in the later parts of the original plot, and why his tongue was so large. The second one, Edo Tensei incomplete, was somewhat useful to him if he could get white zetsu. But it was free, so why not take it? Moreover, these 2 forbidden jutsu contained a large amount of knowledge about ordinary ninjutsu and sealing jutsu. When a person has a high standing and a broad range of knowledge, they will find it very easy to master basic ninjutsu. This is precisely why Hiruzen Sarutobi could become the professor of ninjutsu. It's impossible to master Great Fire Annihilation but not be able to learn Great Fireball Jutsu. At this moment, Naraku remembered Uchiha Hiro outside. He didn't know where she had gone. Naraku went out and saw Uchiha Hiro waiting at the door, chatting with Uchiha Makoto. Actually, it was mainly Uchiha Makoto asking questions and Uchiha Hiro answering. Uchiha Makoto saw Naraku coming and pulled him aside, saying, "Naraku, I feel like I'm falling behind you more and more now. You used to be a little boy I needed to take care of. Now you've grown much taller than me. Regarding rewards, the higher the weapon mastery level, the better the reward. It's not like the protagonist casually throws a good sword to Uchiha Madara, and Uchiha Madara casually swings it a few times, and the protagonist might get the Rinnegan. So don't say the protagonist can only get the guaranteed pity." Looking at Naraku's eyes, Uchiha Makoto blushed and continued, "I just want to help you. I don't want to drift further and further away from you." Naraku looked at the short but very cute Uchiha Makoto, knowing that he hadn't paid much attention to her lately. Since Uchiha Makoto had this idea, he naturally wouldn't refuse. Naraku seriously said to Uchiha Makoto, "All right, Makoto, you'll learn ninjutsu and sword style with Hiro from now on. I'll also have good things for you later, and I'll forge a weapon for you." Uchiha Makoto nodded, her face red. Naraku then handed each of them a toy sword and began to teach them the Hatake sword style. Naraku could only say to Tsukumo Hatake, "I'm sorry, big brother. I'll make it up to you by teaching Kakashi well after he's born. Or I'll help you save your wife." Naraku felt that Hatake Miko probably died giving birth to Kakashi. After all, she always seemed a bit weak, and Hatake Miko seemed to be a housewife who didn't go out on missions, so she shouldn't have died elsewhere. As for why Naraku gave Uchiha Hiro a Naraku brand toy sword, it was because he was genuinely afraid that this little girl might accidentally die if she couldn't control Murasama well. Or that she might accidentally kill Makoto next to her. In that case, he could only visit them in his Hall of Death. Suddenly, Naraku had a bold idea. Naraku slapped himself hard in the mind. Shameless scoundrel. As Naraku slowly narrated, "Our Uchiha clan's sword style is considered quite good in Konoha, but I haven't learned much of it. I'll teach you another sword style here. This sword style primarily focuses on techniques in the early stages." This teaching experience was very fulfilling for Naraku. After all, Naraku saw the adoring look in Makoto's eyes, and Uchiha Hiro next to her was also progressing rapidly. Naraku now understood why Murasama chose this seemingly ordinary little girl. After finishing the teaching, Naraku directly treated the two to a Sea King feast. He had completely decided to slack off. Worst case, he would grow to 3 meters tall, and Makoto would grow to 2.5 meters. The 8-foot lady also has a unique charm, but it's also very possible that she won't grow that tall. After all, Luffy eats every day, and he hasn't grown to 3 meters. It was also at this time that Naraku discovered Uchiha Hiro particularly loved grilled meat, which also made him feel great. After all, a chef who doesn't move his diners isn't a good blacksmith. At this moment, in Danzo Shimura's root prison, Danzo Shimura was holding Yatsufusa towards a group of prisoners in front of him. As Danzo Shimura raised his sword, one by one, the prisoners fell before him. One of the prisoners shouted, "Lord Danzo Shimura, I really didn't do it on purpose. I just peed in that bush. It's not a capital offense." Danzo Shimura didn't waste words, he used wind release chakra attached to Yatsufusa and slashed at the prisoners in front of him. For Danzo Shimura, what about just peeing in the bush? Why were you just peeing directly above the root base? And you dare say you're not a spy? As for whether it might be a misunderstanding, Danzo Shimura could only say that the location of the root must never be known to the enemy. Everything is for Konoha. Soon, Danzo Shimura had killed 8 prisoners. Danzo Shimura turned his back to the prisoners and began to use the power of Yatsufusa. Soon, a group of dead people stood up crookedly, and the wounds on their bodies were gradually healing. Danzo Shimura's move directly scared the prisoners in the next cell into peeing their pants. Then, the dead people controlled by Danzo Shimura quickly rushed towards the prisoners in the next cell. In a few minutes, all the prisoners in the next cell were also dead. Danzo Shimura felt his own consumption and found that if there were only Chunin, he could easily control them with Yatsufusa. But it's still not enough, this level of improvement to his strength isn't very significant. So he needs to bring stronger ninja under his control. As his thoughts drifted, Danzo Shimura's eyes emitted a dangerous glint. On the other side, Naraku, after eating, let the two practice swordsmanship on their own. Naraku accidentally glanced at the system and found that there seemed to be another notification. Ding, Danzo Shimura's utilization of the March of the Dead Yatsufusa has reached the elementary level. Talent copy activated. Host has acquired Wind Release Chakra Mastery. Good, he had acquired another elemental chakra. The day he mastered all elemental chakra was getting closer and closer. Naraku glanced at the Hall of Death again and found 16 Chunin dressed as prisoners neatly arranged inside. Why 16? Naraku couldn't have imagined that Danzo Shimura would be so bold, even experimenting with the puppets' combat power. Now Naraku was a little reluctant to kill Danzo Shimura so quickly. This guy was truly courageous. He got the sword and within 24 hours, he achieved such good results. Naraku was willing to award Danzo Shimura the champion's honor. Ding, Uchiha Hero's utilization of one-hit kill Murasama has reached the elementary level. Talent copy activated. Host has acquired Lightning Release Chakra Mastery. Soon, good news also came from Uchiha Hero's side, bringing him the Lightning Release Chakra he needed most. Now he could finally truly utilize the Hitaki sword style. This also meant that Naraku had completely become an all-elemental user. Naraku went outside directly, took out his toy sword, and used Lightning Release Chakra to stimulate his body and enhance the sword's attack. In just an instant, Naraku cut the large tree in front of him into two halves, and at the same time, casually carved different patterns on several other trees. It could be said that Naraku's current strength had fully reached the Jonin level. As long as he further improved his sword style experience and combat wisdom, he would soon reach the elite Jonin level. The next morning, Naraku uncharacteristically decided to go to the Ninja Academy. He mainly wanted to get in touch with Hyuga Miyabi there. He felt that Hyuga Miyabi was a very promising young girl, and it would be a pity if she faded into obscurity due to the previous sword selection incident. Secondly, he wanted to see Minato Namikaze and Uzumaki Kushina. One of them had astonishing ninja talent, especially in spatial abilities and reaction speed. The other was the Nine Tails Jinchuriki. Naraku had always been wondering if there was a chance to get some Nine Tails chakra. Before, he had even used a shadow clone to attend school. But after a few days, he got bolder and didn't even use a shadow clone anymore. Perhaps his former homeroom teacher, Sarutobi Haruma, had received some notice from Hiruzen Sarutobi, and hadn't come to bother him. Later, Naraku took Uchiha Makoto to school together. As for Uchiha Hiro, she had already graduated and seemed to have a bit of social anxiety, not really liking the school environment. As Naraku slowly walked into the classroom, the little kids in the classroom looked at Naraku curiously, as Naraku's change was simply too great. He had transformed from the previous little beanpole into a 1.7-meter tall big brother for the Ninja Academy kids. If Naraku hadn't looked underage, they would have almost thought a teacher had arrived. That person is so handsome, is he from the upper grades? Wow, his smile is so charming. No way, he's clearly cool. Accompanied by the girls' compliments, Naraku directly sat in his usual seat. At this time, only Hyuga Miyabi and Uchiha Keita recognized Naraku because they had attended the previous sword selection event. Naraku's good friend, Minato Namikaze, was still staring at Naraku. He felt that the person in front of him looked a lot like Naraku, but his reason told him that no one could grow that fast. Naraku smiled and said to Minato Namikaze, "What? Don't you recognize me? I'm Naraku." This directly silenced Minato Namikaze and Uzumaki Kushina, especially Uzumaki Kushina next to him. She had previously been proud of her height because little girls develop faster, so she had always been the tallest of the three. Because of this, she had always placed herself in the position of the big sister. After a long time, the three, who hadn't seen each other in a while, began to communicate. Minato Namikaze and Uzumaki Kushina were also listening with great interest. Especially when Naraku spoke about the imperial arms he had forged, stars almost popped out of the two kids' eyes. While Naraku was boasting, Sarutobi Haruma looked at Naraku as if he had seen a ghost. He had thought Naraku was no longer interested in Ninja Academy life. He never expected Naraku to return to the classroom after half a year. Sarutobi Haruma tried to address the great blacksmith of Konoha with a somewhat amiable attitude. However, he overheard Naraku, Minato Namikaze, and Uzumaki Kushina constantly whispering, completely disregarding him. Finally, after enduring for half an hour, He asked the three of them to leave the classroom, setting them free. Following his custom, Naraku treated Minato Namikaze and Uzumaki Kushina to see King before handing them two Naraku brand toy swords. What's this? Minato Namikaze and Uzumaki Kushina were very curious. These aren't the imperial arms you forged, are they? Naraku directly gave Uzumaki Kushina a flick on the forehead and said, "What are you thinking? How could a ninja academy student like you be qualified to use my imperial arms? Talk to me when you become a Jonin. These are just regular weapons I forged. While they don't have any special abilities, they are far superior in sharpness and toughness, and they also enhance chakra attributes." Uzumaki Kushina really wanted this ninja sword, but she couldn't simply let Naraku off the hook for the big flick he gave her. She could only say threateningly, "Uchiha Naraku, 30 years east, 30 years west. Don't look down on a poor maiden. I, Uzumaki Kushina, will soon become a Jonin. After all, I'm going to be the Hokage's woman." Naraku didn't expect Uzumaki Kushina to have learned that phrase. He thought about it and she seemed to be right, but it was a pity. Not to mention that because of his butterfly effect, Minato Namikaze had an additional competitor in Nawaki. By the time Minato Namikaze became Hokage, he might have already abolished the ninja village system and established an empire. So, to fulfill Uzumaki Kushina's wish of becoming the Hokage's woman, Naraku decided to sacrifice himself once more, taking Uzumaki Kushina in to prevent her from failing to achieve her wish. Hyuga Miyabi was walking alone in the ninja academy. Seemingly due to the caged bird seal or her natural disposition, the girl had become very reclusive, even preferring to eat alone. Finding a secluded corner, Hyuga Miyabi sat down quietly and took out her bento, several large rice balls and some miso soup, eating large mouthfuls. It was at this moment that Naraku found her. Hyuga Miyabi looked at Naraku in front of her, suddenly blushing a little, as it seemed rather ungraceful for a female to eat so much according to ninja world customs. Naraku immediately launched a fierce attack. "Hyuga Miyabi, have you given up?" Hyuga Miyabi. "What, Naraku? Have you given up on escaping your cage without Yatsufusa?" Hyuga Miyabi's pupils constricted, then she feigned composure and said, "I don't understand what you're talking about." Naraku said with a profound smile, "Even beasts know the value of freedom, let alone humans." Looking at the silent Hyuga Miyabi, Naraku continued, "Actually, you are more suited for the ninja sword Yatsufusa, but I cannot directly give Yatsufusa to you. But I'm not wrong, seeing that you seem to have given up on freedom, willing to become a slave of the Hyuga main family. Later, you'll find another slave, give birth to little slaves, and dedicate everything you have to the main family for generations and generations. It sounds very happy, doesn't it? So, are you planning to do that?" At this moment, Hyuga Miyabi could no longer remain calm under Naraku's repeated armor-piercing critical hits. The seemingly reclusive girl raised her head and looked directly at Naraku. With tears welling up in her eyes, she said, "Uchiha Naraku, what exactly do you want to do?" Naraku did not answer Hyuga Miyabi's question, but simply stared intently at Hyuga Miyabi's beautiful Byakugan, then asked again, "Hyuga Miyabi, are you willing to fight one more time for your freedom, or your personal destiny, or even the destiny of the branch family? And fight until death?" Hyuga Miyabi said coldly, "I will naturally not give up. As long as there is even a 1% chance, I can easily give my life. However, I am not doing it for some ridiculous branch family or main family, but for me. For Hyuga Miyabi's freedom and dignity. I'll ask you one last time. What do you want to do?" Naraku was very satisfied with the spirited girl in front of him and said to Hyuga Miyabi, "I plan to create an organization in the future that will change the ninja world, so I need to gather some powerful and not so foolish subordinates. As for you, strive to become stronger now, like a caterpillar accumulating nutrients before breaking out of its cocoon. I will help you complete that step of breaking out of your cocoon and gaining freedom. But I need you to work for me." Hyuga Miyabi calmed her emotions and said plainly, "All right. As long as you help me remove this caged bird seal on my head, I can do anything for you. But Uchiha Naraku, if you deceive me, I will bite a piece of flesh out of you even if I die." After Hyuga Miyabi finished speaking, she looked at Naraku's neck and lower body with dangerous eyes, her little canine teeth even showing. If Naraku hadn't been somewhat experienced, his little brother would probably have been trembling with fear. Naraku's only comment on this was, canine teeth injuring the penis. Naraku threw a toy sword and some processed dried sea king to Hyuga Miyabi and said, I don't have such a twisted hobby to deceive you. Just cultivate well. Your opportunity will come soon. But please make sure you don't forget today's oath. After Hyuga Miyabi took the toy sword Naraku gave her, she stared blankly at Naraku. Naraku, meanwhile, was thinking in his mind how to resolve the caged bird seal for Hyuga Miyabi. Should he give her the stone mask so she wouldn't be human anymore? Or help her get Yatsufusa and let her directly kill off the main family? Or both? Meanwhile, in the Senju clan compound, Tsunade was seeing off her younger brother, Nawaki. Tsunade said with a hint of worry, Nawaki, be careful on the battlefield. Nawaki also said confidently, I will be careful. Don't forget, I also have teacher Orochimaru and Oni possession helping me. As Nawaki spoke, he brandished the Oni possession in his hand. At this moment, the gem of the first Hokage's necklace on the Oni possession's transformation device also emitted a faint green light. Tsunade also suppressed the worry in her heart. After all, if Nawaki wanted to become Hokage, he couldn't always hide behind his elders and not fight. Onoki's small figure sat in his office chair, reviewing documents. The Anbu was reporting to Onoki, Third Tsuchikage, the information you previously requested us to investigate about Kiri no Ikimonji and its potential blacksmith has been found. That weapon was forged by Uchiha Naraku of the Uchiha clan. It is said that Naraku also forged several ninja swords and other weapons stronger than Kiri no Ikimonji. Primarily, several ninja swords and one ninja sword that can transform into armor. We are still unclear about their specific abilities. Onoki frowned and said, keep investigating. It would be best to find out the capabilities of those weapons and Uchiha Naraku's specific habits and preferences. Oh, also, put a bounty on Uchiha Naraku, let's say 35 million. No, that's not enough. Make it 70 million ryo. Yes, the Anbu instantly vanished from the Tsuchikage's office. Meanwhile, Chiyo's subordinates had also gathered similar information, but Chiyo was not as generous as the Tsuchikage, and the hidden sand village was not as wealthy as Iwagakure. She could only instruct her subordinates to continue their investigation. However, Chiyo had already made up her mind. If Konoha's balance was disturbed by the ninja swords Uchiha Naraku created, she would not sit idly by. Nawaki, who had just arrived at the battlefield, saw his teacher, Orochimaru. Teacher, I'm here. Orochimaru looked at his enthusiastic disciple, Nawaki. The gloom from too much killing in recent days was somewhat alleviated, so he smiled and said to Nawaki, from now on, you will stay by my side and follow my commands. I will now explain the precautions on the battlefield to you. The next day, Konoha happened to launch a surprise attack on Iwagakure. Konoha and Iwagakure fought back and forth. During this process, the Iwagakure ninja did not completely lose their fighting spirit, instead, they continued to fight Konoha's forces on the spot. In this process, Nawaki also made good use of the powerful physique from the Senju clan and the sword-shaped Oni possession, cutting down his Chunin opponent. Gradually, the Iwagakure ninja began to be overwhelmed by Konoha, as Konoha had launched a surprise attack. As the Iwagakure ninja retreated, Orochimaru began to order his troops to pursue. Nawaki charged forward, leading the entire unit. Orochimaru looked at his brave disciple and praised him in his heart, Nawaki. The enemy's morale has been crushed. Nawaki confidently rushed forward, when suddenly he noticed his foot seemed to have stepped on an explosive tag. Nawaki immediately shouted in his heart, using the last moments he had, Oni possession. The explosion quickly enveloped Nawaki's entire body. The powerful impact even caused a nearby Chunin to be thrown to the ground. Orochimaru also stared blankly at the explosion, suddenly feeling how fragile humans truly were. They had clearly suppressed the enemy's morale, and the enemy had already begun to flee. Before Orochimaru could finish lamenting human fragility, an armored giant appeared at Nawaki's location, enveloping him. This powerful aura attracted the attention of the Konoha ninja pursuing the enemy and the Iwagakure ninja who had turned back to flee. Gradually, as the armor closed in on Nawaki in an embrace, the armor's mask split open, and the flesh inside slowly transformed into Tyran's hideous maw. Finally, what remained was Nawaki, completely unharmed after his transformation, now clad in cool armor. A green gem on the armor's brow emitted a faint green glow. Nawaki also held a long spear with a particularly long spearhead. Orochimaru looked at this scene, a smile returning to his face, and ordered, "Continue the pursuit." Naoki also scratched his head. He almost thought he was going to be blown up, but he didn't expect the armor's transformation process could also provide some protection. It seemed he should learn to transform earlier in the future. Naoki also quickly used his long spear to continuously thrust at the enemies, cutting down Iwagakure Chunin one by one. These Iwagakure Chunin also resisted. Large-scale attacks were all dodged by Naoki. However, small, dense attacks that hit Naoki's armor could not break through its defense at all. These Iwagakure Chunin could only be killed one by the unreasonable Naoki, who, like an old general on a stage, was covered in banners but fought with increasing vigor. Soon, Naoki's actions attracted the attention of an Iwagakure Jonin. This Iwagakure Jonin, to cover for his subordinates, directly performed hand signs and used earth-style, earth flow river. Instantly, two giant earthen hemispheres formed, sandwiching Naoki. Naoki could only use both arms to prop up the giant hemispheres on his left and right. Seeing this, the Iwagakure Jonin nearly had his eyes pop out. It wasn't that no one could break this ninjutsu, but to forcefully resist it with one's physical body, he had never seen that in his life. This situation was like someone seeing Captain America use the strength of his arms to hold back a helicopter. He had never seen such a maneuver. And the Earth Flow River ninjutsu not only required chakra to activate, but also to maintain its state. The Iwagakure Jonin, seeing that this level of Earth Flow River couldn't kill Naoki, directly increased his chakra. As the Iwagakure's chakra supply expanded, the Earth Flow River slowly grew larger, and at the same time, the pressure from the two earthen hemispheres on Naoki also increased. Naoki also frantically supplied chakra and stamina to the armor, using both arms to firmly resist the crushing force of the earthen hemispheres with his own strength and the armor's power. However, as the force on the earthen hemispheres grew stronger, a few fragments of the armor on Naoki's arms also cracked off. Gradually, the Iwagakure ninja saw Orochimaru's rapidly approaching figure. He knew he was doomed and poured all his chakra into the Earth Flow River ninjutsu. But no matter how much he increased the intensity of the Earth Flow River, Naoki, in the middle of it, was as difficult to crush as a Prince Rupert's drop, until he was decapitated by Orochimaru using Kiri no Ikimonji. After the Iwagakure ninja's death, the Earth Flow River no longer squeezed, and Naoki, in the middle of the earthen spheres, finally escaped, gasping for breath. By this time, the surrounding Iwagakure ninja had long since fled, and Orochimaru immediately announced a halt to the pursuit. The Konoha ninja who survived the battle also cheered for victory, shouting "Long live Orochimaru," and some even shouted "Long live Naoki." In this battle, Naoki used his miraculous ability to attract attention, drawing a large amount of enemy damage, and also killed many enemy Chunin. In the final stage, he even withstood the Earth Flow River ninjutsu, which is almost impossible for humans to resist. After dispelling his transformation, Naoki said to Orochimaru, "Teacher, we won." Orochimaru could only shake his head at this. Meanwhile, Naraku, who was slacking off outside the classroom, suddenly saw a system notification and immediately found a quiet place to accept it. Ding! Naoki has achieved intermediate mastery of A-rank weapon, Oni possession. Talent replication activated. Host has acquired beginner Senju clan physique. Naraku suddenly felt a powerful force surge through his entire body. That force seemed to want to burst his body open, yet it caused him no pain. Instead, it made him feel extremely comfortable. A powerful chakra surged from Naraku's body. His eyes snapped open, a hint of excitement and thrill flashing within them. At the same time, he also felt his body suddenly become very comfortable, so much so that he almost moaned. It was as if every cell in his body had been activated, full of vitality and vigor. Simultaneously, Naraku's Sharingan automatically activated, and the tomo within them began to spin wildly. Finally, the Sharingan in Naraku's eye sockets transformed into a 3 tomo in his right eye and a 2 tomo in his left eye. Naraku, having calmed his mood, decided to open his system panel for the first time in a while to check the recent changes in his strength. System membership level, beginner. Name, Uchiha Naraku. Age, 9 years 80 years. Chakra nature, fire, water, new earth, new wind, new lightning, new yin, yang. Sharingan, 1 tomo right pointing arrow right eye 3 tomo, left eye 2 tomo. Body, B+ right pointing arrow A-. Spirit, B+, right pointing arrow A-. Chakra. 2 cards, right pointing arrow. 10 cards. Card, Kakashi's chakra amount. Chakra control ability, medium. Ninjutsu. Clone jutsu, beginner, right pointing arrow, medium. Transformation jutsu, beginner, right pointing arrow, medium. Substitution jutsu, beginner, right pointing arrow, medium. Fire release. Great fireball technique, beginner, right pointing arrow, medium. Mastered. Summoning technique. Triple Rashomon, Hitaki Kenjutsu, high mastery. Fire release. Great fire annihilation, beginner, right pointing arrow, medium. Summoning technique. Impure world reincarnation, incomplete, mastered. Eight tails transformation technique, incomplete, mastered. Shadow clone, beginner, right pointing arrow, medium. Taijutsu. Uchiha style taijutsu, medium. Genjutsu. Demonic illusion. Hell viewing technique, medium. Advanced weapons. Kiri no Ikimonji, owner. Orochimaru, high mastery, water dragon sword, owner. Tsukumo Hitaki, high mastery, Oni possession, owner. Nawaki, medium mastery, March of the Dead Yatsufusa, owner. Danzo Shimura, beginner mastery, One Cut Killer Murasama Uchiha hero, beginner mastery. Evaluation. Your strength has reached Jonin level, and you can even contend with some elite Jonin head-on. Your panel stats have actually surpassed most elite Jonin, but your understanding and application of combat are still lacking. However, in the current ninja world, you have a certain degree of self-preservation ability. Naraku looked at his panel with a strong sense of accomplishment. It had only been half a year since he awakened the blacksmith system, and now he had the combat power of a Jonin. He had now acquired all conventional chakra natures and possessed the bloodlines of both the Senju clan and the Uchiha clan. Naraku planned to focus his next steps for strengthening on the Mangekyo Sharingan and forging new weapons, especially since there were so many Uchiha clan bloodlines still available. He felt that he could even stack them to awaken a Mangekyo Sharingan. Furthermore, the Senju clan, Uzumaki clan, Kagaya clan, and Hyuga clan should not be overlooked. He would continue to add them whenever possible, constantly evolving his own bloodline. He believed that eventually, he would resemble an Otsutsuki even more than the Six-Path Sage. However, Naraku also knew his shortcomings, which was his lack of experience in ninja combat. Although there is an old Chinese saying, when poor, use tactical infiltration, when rich, use firepower saturation. But firepower saturation also required brains. Look at Otsutsuki Kagaya, who, after devouring Uchiha Madara, descended upon the ninja world. Despite having stronger stats than Uchiha Madara, her fights were truly horrendous. Naraku suspected that even a random Chunin pulled from the battlefield would have better combat awareness than her. Naraku thought Otsutsuki Kagaya was simply a airhead. At this moment, a certain clueless individual sleeping inside the moon sneezed. Otsutsuki Kagaya looked at the ninja world and said, I will definitely return. After completing the war's mop-up work, Orochimaru called Nawaki to him. Nawaki was still in the joy of victory, but seeing his teacher's serious gaze, Nawaki's smile finally faded. Based on Nawaki's experience, he knew that when his teacher was like this, it usually meant he needed to listen carefully to his teachings. Orochimaru seriously told Nawaki, Nawaki, you made a great contribution in this battle. You killed more enemy Chunin on the battlefield than I did. Nawaki scratched his head and smiled awkwardly, I'm not that amazing. It was mainly thanks to the Oni possession, forged by Master Naraku. Orochimaru, however, did not smile. While it is certainly right to utilize good weapons, it is only with the Senju clan's physique and your high compatibility that such good effects can be achieved. It is also a part of your strength. However, you lack too much combat common sense, from stepping on explosive tags at the very beginning to being hit by Earth Release, Earth-style wall later on. Even the Ninja Academy should have taught you a little about observing the landing points of explosive tags, and even your first reaction after stepping on one should have been taught at the Ninja Academy. It can only be said that luckily, the transformation process of Oni possession also provides a certain degree of protection, otherwise, you would have either died instantly or been forced into early retirement. Later, with the Earth Release, Earth-style wall, you directly block the ninjutsu with both arms. You should know that ninjutsu isn't even considered a fast attack type. Many times, it's used to restrict enemies and deal with large summoning beasts. Indeed, you safely overcame the crisis by relying on the armor, but you kept relying on the power of the Imperial Arm to withstand enemy attacks that could have been easily avoided. If you encounter stronger enemies later, such as lava release or dust release, can you still rely on your armor to withstand them? The outcome of this battle was very good, but as your teacher, I still consider you to have failed. To some extent, you don't act like a ninja at all, but more like those samurai. From now on, you will stay in the rear until you get rid of these basic mistakes. Only then will I assign you other tasks. After saying this, Orochimaru left, leaving Naoki alone in the tent to ponder. Not long after, Naoki received his promotion notice. He officially became a squad leader in the logistics unit. Orochimaru sending Naoki to the rear was not entirely for him to reflect, but because being too rigid breaks easily. Especially on the battlefield, coupled with Naoki's special identity, it could always bring him some particular dangers. Naoki, who was transferred to the rear, did not know that the previous battle had already made him famous. Because some Iwagakure ninjas saw Naoki's transformation process, coupled with the indestructible nature of his armor, which directly immunized him to ninjutsu attacks below B rank. So, they gave Naoki the nickname, Iron Demon. After listening to his subordinate's report, Onoki, on the other side, rubbed his head once again. Konoha had been causing a lot of trouble recently. Even if it was just local skirmishes, Iwagakure couldn't keep losing. Do you know the specific identity of that Iron Demon this time? And is that armor the one forged by Uchiha Naraku? Onoki asked his subordinates again. The Anbu replied, the Iron Demon should be Senju Naoki of the Senju clan, a prominent family in Konoha. This person is the grandson of the first Hokage, Senju Hashirama. As for that armor, we can only speculate that there's a high probability it was forged by Uchiha Naraku. Onoki's brows furrowed when he heard Naoki's identity. Senju Hashirama was the god of shinobi. Both his power and his magnanimity earned him that title. This Senju Naoki was also starting to show his talent at a young age. He suddenly felt a little worried. Put Senju Naoki on the black market with a bounty of 50 million ryo, and Senju Naoki's weapons with a bounty of 20 million ryo, Onoki issued the final command. After the Anbu left the office, Onoki thought about how his village lacked a young generation capable of shouldering great responsibilities. He looked out at the village from the window and sighed, how unfair is heaven. Konoha's powerful young generation is practically multiplying like crazy. We haven't even dealt with Uchiha Naraku, and now there's another Senju Naoki. It was precisely because of this that Konoha, despite having an internal conflict among the strongest ninja, could still firmly suppress any other ninja village in the ninja world. The war did not stop. The flames of war intensified and scorched the land of rain. At this time, in a war zone in the Land of Rain, two Konoha Chunin were carrying out a mission. However, due to several days of intense fighting, their stamina was exhausted, and their rations had long been eaten. Facing hunger and fatigue, the two decided to go nearby to find food to sustain themselves. The two arrived at a small wooden house and began to feast, and this wooden house was where Nagato's family lived. At this moment, to avoid unknown intruders, Nagato's parents had taken Nagato and hidden in a corner. When the two Konoha Chunin arrived, they did not know there were other people inside the house. Nagato's father told Nagato not to make a sound and just to leave quietly. But Nagato was still young, filled with fear and unease. Just then, Nagato accidentally knocked over a vase, making a crisp sound. This sound alerted the two Konoha Chunin, who quickly rushed to the next room, determined not to let any potential enemy escape. When they entered the room, the atmosphere in the darkness made them tense. One of the Chunin struggled with Nagato's father, while the other Chunin unhesitatingly wielded his kunai, stabbing Nagato's mother. Nagato's mother quickly fell in front of Nagato, while Nagato's father shouted, "Nagato, run! Run!" Nagato's father was still trying to protect his family, but eventually, he also fell in a pool of blood. The two Konoha Chunin, who had calmed down, observed by the light and realized how wrong they had been. They had actually killed civilians, mistaking them for enemies. And Nagato, witnessing his parents' tragic deaths before him, was filled with endless sorrow and fear. The two Konoha Chunin felt deeply remorseful. They apologized to Nagato, explaining that they had mistakenly believed his parents were enemies. Despite this, Nagato still could not accept the reality. He widened his eyes, staring in horror at the blood-soaked scene, his body trembling uncontrollably. With a flash of lightning, Nagato saw the Konoha headbands on their heads. Nagato, who had long had the Rinnegan implanted by Uchiha Madara, could no longer suppress his fear and directly activated a fraction of the Rinnegan's power, which instantly killed the 2 Konoha ninja. Nagato also fainted. At this time, in an unknown underground location, Uchiha Madara, the white-haired Konoha dance king, sat on a chair, his Sharingan glaring. White Zetsu Tobi said, "Lord Madara, Nagato has activated the Rinnegan's power. And Nagato's parents are dead. Should we continue to monitor their family?" Uchiha Madara glanced at Tobi and said, "Continue to monitor. Also, are there any interesting news from outside recently?" White Zetsu Tobi immediately stood at attention and said, "Lord Madara, recently a fellow named Uchiha Naraku from the Uchiha clan has emerged. Uchiha Naraku seems to have awakened a new Kekkei Genkai, allowing him to continuously forge powerful weapons. He previously forged a weapon that causes an enemy to bleed continuously if cut." Uchiha Madara watched White Zetsu Tobi finish speaking, then sneered, "The Uchiha clan is getting worse and worse, gaining fame by relying on other Kekkei Genkai. And it's through forging. What great use can such weapons have? If you can't hit anyone, it's all useless. The Sharingan is the best weapon." Tobi, however, suddenly continued, "He also forged powerful armor that can nullify ninjutsu below B rank. He gave this armor to Senju Nawaki. There are also 2 ninja swords. Oh, they like to call them imperial tools. One of the ninja swords is covered with a powerful cursed poison, said to cause instant death upon contact. The other can control the corpses of people killed by this weapon. Lord Madara, you are so powerful. You must be able to withstand the cursed poison of that ninja sword, right?" While Tobi was still proud of the rare flattery he had given Lord Madara, he didn't notice the veins bulging on Uchiha Madara's forehead. At this moment, Uchiha Madara was constantly telling himself that this White Zetsu was special and it was best not to kill him. Uchiha Madara was silent for a moment and said, "From now on, finish your sentences. Say the important things first. These things are nothing in front of the Uchiha's Mangekyo Sharingan. And giving armor to someone from the Senju clan. HMPH. Naraku brat, you'd better not regret it." Madara was both angry and a little emotional about Naraku and Nawaki forming a bond, as if thinking, "You're as naive as I was back then, you'll definitely suffer losses." As for experimenting with cursed poison, Uchiha Madara completely ignored Toba's suggestion. After all, there were many strange things in the ninja world, and even he wasn't entirely confident he could withstand some of them. Tobi also bowed deeply and said, "Lord Madara, I will definitely work hard from now on. But can you tell me what the sensation of needing to defecate feels like? I haven't seen you defecate in the past few days." Hearing this, Uchiha Madara could no longer tolerate it. Even though he generally relied on the demonic statue of the outer path to sustain his life, he would occasionally defecate. The thought of a White Zetsu, or perhaps a group of White Zetsu, perversely peeking at him while he was defecating made him furious. Uchiha Madara kicked Tobi, who was directly embedded in the underground wall. Uchiha Madara also instructed, "From now on, prioritize protecting Nagato, and continue to monitor Uchiha Naraku more closely." Tobi, while trying to pull out his lower body, said, "Understood, Lord Madara. But can you tell me what the sensation of needing to defecate feels like?" Uchiha Madara quickly walked out of the room. He didn't want to argue about this with an idiot. In the black market, Kakuzu, the legendary bounty hunter, who had fought the first Hokage and survived, a master of his craft, and a money-hoarding warrior, was flipping through the bounty catalog. When he suddenly saw 2 bounties of 70 million ryo each for 2 youngsters added to the catalog, his eyes suddenly lit up. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe for more videos.